4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Howell in the chat says, got a little advice for me. Maggie, for your 40-yard dash at next year's draft, have someone attach a bag of gummies to a stick like they do at a dog track. See, that implies that I needed some kind of motivation. The motivation was to not embarrass myself, which I'm pretty sure I did.
I did not see you fall.
I had like a Fred Flintstone kind of wind up where I was like, ah! Like my feet were going and then I took off.
Yeah,
Like
you were
fast feet.
Next year, maybe can we get you a coach or something? Somebody tell you how to get out of the blocks?
How about just like a pair of shorts. I think I
Some
could have.
sneakers, maybe.
I got to plan a little better for this thing.
The upright running style, you have so much wind resistance coming at you when you run like that.
I told you I'm taller than people think, so that's a whole 5'8".
Yeah.
I'm like a parachute out there.
They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
Welcome into the show, Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff on this very, very extremely busy Tuesday. We've got Cowboys training camp opening up. We've got NBA players breaking records in terms of contracts. But Perloff, the one story that's going to be all around the water cooler today and what people are talking about is the scary situation with Bronny James, the son of LeBron James. Went into a cardiac arrest reportedly yesterday morning during a USC basketball practice. And we know Bronny is just going to be starting his freshman year in the fall at USC, or maybe he's already enrolled. So this was around 9:30 a.m. West Coast time yesterday. A 911 dispatcher can be heard saying that they believed he was unconscious in an audio clip that was obtained by TMZ. He was taken as a medical emergency code 3, which signifies emergency teams arriving at the scene with ambulance lights and sirens. Obviously, the James family is asking for privacy, and everyone will give that to them, of course. But this is a scary situation. It looks like a tragedy has been averted, though.
Right, he's out of the ICU. I mean, immediately my mind went to Hank Gathers. I think you're a little too young. You missed in 1990. He collapsed and died on the court, and he was just sort of becoming a superstar. Hank Gathers at Loyola Marymount. So what struck me about Bronny, first of all, I'm so glad he's okay, but I feel really bad because he has done such a good job of handling this bizarre situation. Having the same name as the most famous basketball player in the planet.
Yep.
I think it's incredible how he's handled it so far, and by all reports, he's jumped up the player rankings. He was sort of living off of LeBron James's name as a player reportedly. Then all of a sudden, he took a massive step forward. We saw him in the McDonald's game, hit 6 threes, looked like a real serious NBA prospect. So it feels like he's handled everything so well that this is such sad because we don't know if he can play again. That was my other thought. I don't know if he's ever going to play again.
I mean, to have this kind of whatever it's going to be, whether he plays again or not, this is clearly a massive diversion, obstacle, whatever you want to call it. Again, we're so lucky, and everyone's lucky, that it's not fatal. That would have been such an awful tragedy. You know, now that he's out of the ICU, stable, LeBron's tweeting, as if regular life's going on. He's not tweeted about this, but, last night LeBron sending tweets about, making jokes on social media, so nobody would have thought anything is wrong. Meanwhile, we find out this really serious situation happened with Bronny. And, listen, what happens with Bronny, who knows? We have not gotten any more information, and that will all take its time. But what I find interesting about the story, beyond the fact that he's okay, thank goodness, is LeBron had attached the end of his career to Bronny publicly. Yeah. So I don't think it's unfair or indelicate at this time to wonder, what does this mean for the rest of LeBron's career? If now Bronny's future's in flux, that means LeBron's future's in flux.
Absolutely. I had the same thought. Again, I understand what you're saying. You don't really want to think about that, but since he's out of the ICU, you can wonder, does LeBron rethink this? Although I also wondered, LeBron is he joking when he says I will want to? Not joking. Is he being dead serious when he says I want to play with Bronny? Because he also at the same time wants to win another title. Because last week we debated LeBron versus Michael Jordan.
Yeah, all week long. Yes.
So I think he has 2 goals in his career: to win another title and to play with his son. So I'm not sure that those 2 goals ever fit together. He joked on social media, Atlanta, here we come. To play with Bronny and his son. Yeah,
it was a mock draft that put Bronny to the Hawks. Yeah.
But I always wondered if it came down to it, LeBron, would he go to a worse team that didn't have a shot to win a title? I wasn't convinced that he would leave a potential contender to play with his son. But then again, all of that is on hold now.
Yeah, it's all on hold, and we'll see what happens. But interesting. Really, I think LeBron was probably hoping that he would win a title this year. I mean, they did make it to the Western Conference Finals, and then as Bronny's ready to be drafted in 2024, that perhaps then he's ready to move on. Now, that's like in a perfect world, which LeBron has made a lot of things happen to feel like a storybook in his career.
Well, last year,
this one's going to be tough.
They had to trade for Rui Hachimura at the break just to make the playoffs. I don't know that remember the season, for most of the season, was a disaster for the Lakers. So I'm not sure he was really until the very end when they're like, "Ooh, we're pretty good." I'm not sure that he was really intent on winning a title this year. I think maybe this upcoming season is for him a make or break season. I think LeBron probably thinks, "Ooh, we got something going at the end of last year. We can win it all this year." Win it all this year, then go play with Bronny would have been perfect.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, maybe that dream is still alive, but maybe life gets in the way. And again, thankfully, avoided a tragedy. But that is the top story, and that is going to be the water cooler conversation about Bronny James. I mean, out of nowhere, cardiac arrest at practice, and then taken to the hospital in the ICU in an ambulance, and now he's out of the ICU and stable, I guess. Yeah,
I hope he's okay. I hope he gets to play basketball again because you could tell this is a kid who loves basketball.
I think if your dad is LeBron James or like Arch Manning with his uncles and with Cooper as his dad, if you're really not into it, at some point it becomes too difficult where you're just going to give up. Like, it's not your livelihood. You're not getting your family out of poverty, or, the stakes aren't so high. And I think at some point, if you don't love it, why wouldn't you just go on and find a different avenue, find a different passion? You're going to the best schools. You have all these amazing things at your fingertips. If you don't love it, there's so many other exit ramps where you could get off and do something else with your life.
Absolutely. Although we have heard of players who are miserable their whole lives just trying to please their father. That has happened.
Want to get into the psychology there?
Yeah, that's happened to a lot of people.
All right, everyone. Deepest, darkest secrets time. Let's open up.
But there's also this weird phenomenon in the NBA where mid-level NBA players make the best son basketball players. Steph Curry's dad, Del Curry, was pretty good. Kobe Bryant's dad, Jelly Bean, was a six man. So it's not always, it's very rare to have LeBron James, a player that quality, to have his son be that great. Michael Jordan Jr. was like 4 points a game in college.
Yeah.
It never happens. Larry Bird, none of his kids, multiple reported kids.
I never was checking up on Larry's kids.
Larry,
Magic Johnson's kids. Like, you're right about that.
Yeah, it's never really happened. That when we're talking the GOAT category, I can't think of anyone. Am I missing something?
Well, the Griffeys, but Ken Griffey Sr. wasn't nearly as good as Jr.
Right. Where the parent is rarely the GOAT level. You're right. Like Ken Griffey, an all-star, he was pretty good. Barry Bonds' dad was very good.
Yeah.
But to have an MVP whose kid is also that good,
I think it's hard. I think it can be difficult for a variety of reasons, but by all accounts, Bronny was on his way, and so at least to becoming an NBA prospect and player. Now, again, hopefully he's going to be fine. He's going to get out of this okay and go back to basketball if that's what he chooses, and if not, then I'm sure he'll find another passion.
Yeah, it's just hopefully he's okay.
Yeah, it's like it's health over everything. Now, speaking of, not to transition out of this too indelicately, but speaking of health of the league, and that'd be the NBA, clearly things are going very, very well because Jaylen Brown, who is not even the best player on his own team, signed a contract extension today, 5 years, over $300 million.
Richest contract ever.
Richest contract ever for a guy,
Brown.
Not even the best player on his own team, I reiterate. Now, that's no disrespect to Brown, who is the second best player on his own team, but Jason Tatum is in line to get a contract extension next year, and it's going to be even bigger. Now, I understand how the NBA works. These are slotted in, right? You make X number of all NBA teams, and you've been in the league this amount of years. This is what you're eligible for, and clearly they got a big contract done. It just feels a little odd, like the natural order of things, that a guy who's not even the best player has the biggest contract. It's like he's not even we've been debating greatest players, greatest teams, greatest everything. Jaylen Brown hasn't been anywhere near any of these conversations. He's a fantastic player. He's elite. He's an all-star. Success with the Celtics. They haven't broken through yet, but they're knocking on the door every single year to an NBA title. I get wanting to keep Jaylen Brown and Tatum together. I understand. It just feels like it's a little out of whack when not even the best player, the top 5, top 10 player in the league is making the most money.
Totally. It's a bizarre thing just to say, Jaylen Brown is the highest paid player in the NBA. You'd be like, what? Obviously, that'll pass over. The thing is, he's coming on a little bit of a low, I think. I don't think he played well this playoffs. Remember he couldn't help but turn the ball over time and time again.
The dribbling's an issue.
The dribbling's an issue, and I think it was last year too, but it really stood out this year. He did increase his scoring, made an All-NBA team. So he, like you said, he's a great player, probably somewhere between 10 and 15. But it doesn't make it. This should be Jokic. This should be Giannis. And this should be maybe LeBron or Steph Curry. It should.
I mean, they all make a lot of money too.
They're fine. I mean, they're fine. But when you say over $300 million, you think it's a guy who is a franchise like Giannis,
or like the face of the league.
Yeah, I mean Tatum, sure. I don't think we would have blinked at Tatum, but not Jaylen Brown. Fred VanVleet. Maybe not. He made a lot of money.
Yes. I mean,
Samter brought him up before the show. He's like, well, Fred VanVleet's making a lot of money. But I love Fred VanVleet.
But, like, we're talking about, in the year, 2027, 2028, Jaylen Brown's going to be making like $69 million a year, something like that. I mean, that's wild because it's not evenly dispersed over the years.
Yeah, but don't you have to divide the total number by 5?
You can to get the average, and that's fine, but that's not the way the contract actually pays out. Like the end of Jimmy Butler's, big contract, he's going to get like $50 million a year. He's not there yet. He's going to get there. This is why NBA contracts are bananas.
Does Jaylen Brown add $69 million of value to the U.S. economy?
He clearly adds more. I mean, who's signing the checks? Like, don't get it twisted. We're not begrudging the man his money. It's just seems a little out of whack. But clearly the owners can afford it, and clearly the league's in a great state.
What was your reaction in terms of, does this get the Celtics closer to a championship? To me, I said, okay, now they're really stuck with the Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown combo, and that has not gotten it done yet. So it made me a little bit nervous. I think they could sneak through the East and maybe beat the best team in the West. But to me, I was like, this means a title for the Celtics. To me, this means more of what we've seen the last 3 or 4 years, which is close but not quite.
Yeah, but I'd take close but not quite because, I mean, sometimes it takes a minute for you to break through. And I don't know if they wanted to see what life was like without Tatum and Brown. They obviously let Marcus Smart go. He's now in Memphis. They have Porzingis now, which I'm not a huge believer that he's actually going to be able to stay healthy, but we'll see if he proves any of us wrong. But you're talking about a team that's either in the conference finals or in the finals, the last few years outside of 2020, 2021, where they lost in the first round. But this is a perennial deep in the playoffs team. I think you got to keep that combo together. But
they're moving a little bit in the wrong direction because they were disappointing in the playoffs. They fell down 3-0 to the Heat.
Yep.
Came back and made it a series, but I felt like they went the wrong direction last year with new coach Joe Mazzulla. Maybe Mazzulla will get better. Maybe it's a coaching issue, but the Celtics, young players getting into their 20s should be getting closer to a title, not taking a small step back.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's not always a straight line. You go to the finals, then you lose in the Eastern Conference Finals. The most disappointing part about it is just how easily the Nuggets really handled Miami.
Wow, the West is so far ahead of the East.
I know, but that doesn't bode well for you.
Yeah.
I've said I think the Nuggets are on the doorstep of a potential dynasty. I think they're going to win this upcoming year, and they look really, really like a juggernaut. And meanwhile, a whole group of, a lot of undrafted players, took out the Boston Celtics when you have all this star power.
But I got to tell you, one move they made, you don't like it, but at least they signed a center in Kristaps Porzingis.
Yeah.
Porzingis could be the best. Jokic was playing against Bam Adebayo, who's 6'9" in the finals. If Porzingis happens to be on the court, a big if, then he's a better answer than those guys. So that's something. Maybe that's why they got him. I think they might have been thinking about the Nuggets.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact that if Porzingis is going to be healthy by the time they even get to the playoffs. Now, I know that I'm not the first person to ever say this, but you see Jaylen Brown sign a $300 million contract today. Imagine you're Saquon Barkley. Got to be like, oh, man. And Saquon Barkley's whole contract is guaranteed, but he signed a 1-year deal for $10 million now with incentives to get to $11 million. And here comes Jaylen Brown's going to be making like $50 million a year. 60. I
wonder, can you cross sports like that?
I think that I'm sure the NFL guys have heard this so many times that it probably doesn't matter much to them. But could you not help the juxtaposition of those two stories today? We're talking about a guy who might be the 10th to 15th best player in the NBA, breaks a record, and here's Saquon Barkley's got to scratch and claw to get an extra $800,000.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think it's going to hurt even more when Nick Bosa signs for $240.
Yeah.
Boy, Chris Jones signs for $280. So football, it's not like football players sometimes don't get paid. It's just the running back thing. Yeah,
particularly tough.
I would advise Saquon Barkley, do not read NBA headlines. Yeah.
Or your mentions, because Saquon Barkley, and we'll get into his contract and what happened. He signed an adjusted version of the franchise tag this morning where he's got about $900,000, sorry, pardon me, tied to incentives. The biggest ones being that the Giants have to make the playoffs again. And it's like you had to scratch and claw and have all of this angst over that. And then, whoosh, here comes NBA contracts just blowing you out of the water. Anyway, it's something I thought about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. I do think NFL contracts are going to blow that out of the water, too. I think there's going to be 3 or 4 this August that are just going to be like, wait, this guy's making this and Saquon's a bigger star?
Well, and the other part, too, is, Barkley, the way that this negotiation went down, not exactly a case study for Wharton Business School. It's like he didn't really get the negotiation, didn't really work in his favor very much. Anyway.
Well, actually, we should take a break.
Yeah.
But I think Saquon was going to get what he was going to get, no? I want to hear your thoughts on that because I don't think he could have gotten any more out of this.
No, but not going to make him sweat even for a day.
Oh, yes. That's a good point. Okay, I see what you're saying.
If I'm Josh Jacobs, I'm like, what the hell, man? What happened to the Zoom? I thought we were in this together.
Yeah.
Thought we were going to, running backs, unite. We're going to change things, and we're going to really hold people's feet to the fire. And instead, Barkley signs. Their camp doesn't even open till tomorrow, technically.
Right, but if he had held out, he might not have made any more money.
Maybe not, but he also wasn't going to get fined any money for missing training camp. So you could have made the organization maybe try to, I don't know, at least show how upset you are, I guess.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Well, he can tweet something.
Yeah, good. Instead, he showed up at 7 a.m. this morning. He was like the first guy in the building.
Wasn't that the running back plan? We're going to tweet some angry things, and that's pretty much all we got?
Yeah, that's kind of all we got. RPC pointing out in the chat, Johnny Unitas had to take regular jobs in the offseason. I get how far we've come here, but for the athletes themselves, they realize how big the pie is. The pie wasn't as big when Johnny Unitas was playing. If
Johnny Unitas was alive, what would he think of Jaylen Brown's contract? That is what I want to know.
Dude, that's our poll question for today. No. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Okay, so you got some NBA stuff going on. We got NFL going on. Also, the Great Debate Series continues today. Now, if you missed yesterday's show, the theme for this week is greatest player at their position in NFL history. No caveats, no since 2000 or 30 years or whatever, just in history, greatest player at their position. Yesterday we did wide receiver and cornerback. Today we are doing running back and inside linebacker. Catching our theme here? Like the yin and the yang of the offense and the defense. I think we're hammering it home pretty obviously.
Oh, I just realized that. Then we're going opposites. Okay. I'm back in.
Yeah. But this is the smartest show on radio.
You could have put cornerback against quarterback, too, in a way.
Yeah, but we're saving quarterback until tomorrow.
Gotcha. Okay. So, I'm in. I understand now what we're doing.
That's cool. I'm glad the co-host finally realizes what we're doing. On Tuesday. Okay, so today we're going to do running back and inside linebacker. We're going to do that next. Don't move. Maggie and Perloff, you are a part of this show. Weedos, Purple Drinkers, callers, 855-212-4227. You want to watch the show, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to Maggie and Perloff. It makes sense. Our last segment, we were talking about Johnny Unitas and how guys are sort of underpaid compared to the Jaylen Browns of the world back in the 1950s and 60s NFL. I've been looking at so much old footage this week because we're doing the Great Debate Series on the best player at every position in the NFL, every major position.
Of all time.
Of all time. Today we're doing best running back ever. So, oh man, I got into a YouTube hole last night. It was so much fun. I love running back highlights. I mean, I'm not going to pay any running back. I'm not going to draft them high, but I will watch your highlights on YouTube, especially old school. So I'm really
maybe they can charge by the highlight to get extra income.
Well, honestly, they at least they have the ball in their hand. They get in the end zone. They're going to get a lot of marketing money. So that's something. I don't know.
Are they getting a lot of marketing money?
Yeah, Saquon has Old Spice.
Okay.
Saquon has huge marketing money.
Okay, Saquon. What other running back?
That's the irony about Saquon. He's actually made a lot more money than some of these other guys. I don't know. Are there any other? Adrian Peterson probably did some ads. I don't know. Yeah.
Did he? I don't know.
Does Austin Eckler have
I mean, he's got a podcast.
Does he have a local restaurant? I don't know. I think running backs
have a local restaurant.
Running backs make a lot more than defensive tackles and guards in marketing. Yeah, most marketing people in the NFL I know, the only true value positions are running back, wide receiver, quarterback. Quarterback being number one. Once you get onto one of the lines, you're not marketing anything. Okay. So I think you can make some money.
Okay.
It's not all national ads. I mean, they're little deals. They're little Instagram posts. You know how it is. Well,
tell me more. No, I'm trying to find other income for running backs because I think clearly the just playing football is not going to be enough.
I think Cameo, where they can do little messages to people. I think the running backs are going to have to get creative here. I'm not saying it's ideal, but I think Saquon might need a side job. Maybe he can
intern.
Yeah, he could sell stuff online. I don't know.
Okay, let's start our great debate series, shall we?
The Great Debate Series. Best running back ever.
Greatest running back ever. Best running back ever. This is so hard, right?
So hard.
This might be the hardest one we've ever done or will do.
Might be.
Because there are so many incredible candidates. You went first yesterday, Perloff, so I'll go first on this one today. I believe you went first.
Yeah, I think we're doing two categories a day. So you go first on the first one, and I'll go first on the second one.
Okay, love it. On-air production meeting. Awesome. So I will go first. The greatest running back of all time is none other than Barry Sanders. The 10 years that he was in the NFL, it was just 10 years of peak. That's it. Just peak the whole time. 153 games, 15,269 yards, 99 rushing touchdowns, 109 total touchdowns, averaging 5 yards per carry. That's more than Walter Payton. That's more than Jim Brown. That's what Barry was able to do, kind of like defying the laws of physics and gravity in some ways while he's playing running back. Now, the one thing about Barry that's hard, and our formula for this is always like a moving target. The lack of postseason success.
Yeah, that is true.
Difficult. It's really difficult. But I think for Barry, what matters most is that he wasn't playing for great teams and still was able to elevate in a lot of ways. And he wasn't on a juggernaut, and he wasn't on the San Francisco 49ers dynasty, and he wasn't in the Pittsburgh Steelers dynasty.
He sure wasn't.
He sure as hell wasn't. And so the fact that he could still be the greatest of all time despite playing on mediocre teams, I think only adds to this candidacy. He's a 2-time NFL MVP, 4 different seasons. He had the rushing title, a 6-time first-team All-Pro. And, you know, there's a flash about Barry, just like when I talked about Deion Sanders yesterday with cornerback. There's an artistry. There was something artistic about what Barry was doing. Brutal, too, in a way, but artistic about what Barry did.
I know this is your choice, but can I just wait for a second? My favorite play is when there'd be a giant pile and Barry would go into it, and you're like, oh, he's tackled somewhere in there. And then, he pops out, and then it's an 80-yard run.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite plays in the history of the NFL.
Let's hear Barry Sanders highlights.
Sanders.
Goodbye, hello, where are you? What a call. And that was what it was like to watch Barry. Now, it's funny that Saquon Barkley's in the news every day lately, but Barkley's doing like a Barry impersonation. He's just not doing it. It's just not as good. And he has that, you know, he's said many times that Barry is his inspiration. And
he's a little bigger. Isn't he?
A little bigger, but a little bigger, but you watch him, and that's what he's doing.
Yeah, he's trying. No, I'm just saying, in my opinion, nobody could do that kind of crazy lateral movement that Barry did. But that does not make him the greatest of all time.
All right, go ahead.
I am going with the man who could do everything at running back. He could block. He could catch, or Barry could catch passes, but this guy could really catch passes. He could throw passes. He was the greatest citizen in the history of the NFL and has the Man of the Year award named after him. He is none other than Walter Payton, who ended his career as the all-time leader in rushing yards, all-time leader in all-purpose yards, all-time leader in touchdowns. Yeah, those have all been broken, but that's not my point here.
Yeah.
He was a football player's football player. Unlike Barry, who was incredibly quick and, you know, sort of scattershot. You never know where he was going to go. Walter would run right over you, or he'd run around you. He could do everything as a running back. And I mentioned I was in a YouTube hole last night. His runs, he's got part Earl Campbell, where he just runs over guys, and his jersey comes off, and you see his shoulder pad. Then he's got part Barry Sanders, where he can juke you, too.
Yeah.
Not only that, the dude's stiff-armed like crazy, which is a big plus. And he could actually fly like Michael Jordan. He sort of invented that jumping over the pile. He was a long jumper in college and flew over the pile for those short touchdowns. Great highlights of that. I think other backs have picked that up since. He was a little bit more of an all-around back than Barry, and he was just utterly sensational. One more thing I like about him, Barry did this too. Never celebrated a touchdown. Just handed it to the official because he's been there before. And that is the coolest, baddest thing you can do as a running back. I think, listen, I love Barry. We both admire Jim Brown so much. But if you're talking about all-around running back, it's Walter Payton.
Yeah. You didn't mention also Walter Payton 3-time MVP to Barry's 2 MVPs. I'm giving you a little ammo here. But
Yeah. I don't think you judge running backs by MVPs, really. That's kind of feels like a quarterback stat. And even so, doesn't Peyton Manning have like 1 million MVPs?
Yeah, but that's now. Like back then when, I think running backs were winning them a lot.
Yeah, but I don't think but regardless, I don't think MVP is a really big deal for Walter Payton. I mean, listen, Walter Payton didn't win a Super Bowl till the end in '85, and famously, Ditka gave a goal line carry to Fridge Perry instead of Walter Payton. A lot of people were upset about that, but I think he retired. People forget he retired as undoubtedly the record holder and everything. There are more games, and numbers are just up in general. Otherwise, he'd still be at the top of a lot of lists. His legacy. This is more of your style, but like as a person, like does that count for him? The Man of the Year stuff?
I mean,
Barry's a pretty good dude too, so I'm not sure I'm going to go there.
Listen, we've had throughout this great debate series, we've had guys who are not exactly Saints have been making, well, not New Orleans Saints, but people who have not been Saints off the field have made it onto a few lists here or there.
Yeah.
Maybe a little foreshadowing when we talk about
later
inside
today.
linebacker. There might be somebody who went through some legal issues who may or may not be number one. But sure, why not? It always counts to be a good person.
Yeah, Walter Payton though, it's just magical. And if you never saw him, just like I would advise any young football fan, go back and watch Walter Payton highlights, watch Barry Sanders highlights, and also Jim Brown highlights. I think Jim Brown kind of hovers over this. It's a little different. Did you look at Brown as well?
I did look at Brown. I know Samter's itching to get in because he wants to stand up for Jim Brown. But just one quick thing though about Walter Payton and why I went Barry Sanders over Walter Payton.
Yeah, I know. I know exactly where you're going to go. Wait, okay, I'm going to tell Samter what you're.
What?
I know the stat that is going to hurt Walter Payton.
Okay, well, Walter Payton had 110 rushing touchdowns to Barry's 99. So Walter Payton only had 11 more rushing touchdowns, but yet 57 more games. Like Barry was doing it at this incredible clip. Now, to your point, coaching decisions. Coming down to the goal line, you're not going to call your own number. That's a lot on coaching and things like that. And Barry wasn't on very good teams, so of course he was getting the ball.
I don't count rushing touchdowns. It's like runs in baseball. They're meaningless. You should have gone. Walter Payton only averaged 4.4 yards per carry. Barry averaged 5.0.
I know. Well, I said that in my whole Barry spiel.
Yeah.
I said he had more yards per carry than Walter and Jim Brown.
Yeah, you didn't mention Walter's number. Yes, I think actually we should double check it. I think Brown was right there too.
Yeah, Brown was 5.2 yards per carry, and Maggie was right. I am itching. If you look, and we talk about the
Samter, the floor is yours.
The pro sports reference pages, and if it's bold, that means you led the league in bold. Jim Brown was in the NFL for 9 years. He led the league in rushing 8 times. The one time that he didn't lead the league in rushing, he only had 996 yards. He led the league in touchdowns 5 times. He won 3 MVPs. MVPs mattered. 9-time Pro Bowl, 8-time All-Pro in 9 seasons. Every single year this guy was in the NFL, he dominated. And don't forget, he had 12,000 yards rushing. The first 4 years of his career, he only played 12 games a year. Then they upped it up to 14 games a year, and he still done. He had 1,800 yards in a 14-game season. So forget about all these stats that Barry Sanders was putting up and the beautiful runs and the great, juke moves. How many times did Barry Sanders get tackled behind the line of scrimmage because he's juking and jiving behind the line?
Okay, but
and then he got second and 13.
But those yards get taken away from your totals, and Barry's still retired with over 15,000 yards.
Sure, but we talk about winning and lack of postseason success. Maybe the lack of postseason success might have to do with the fact that the team was facing second and 13, second and 14. A lot more often than second and 6 and second and 7.
Detroit Lions
Barry was the problem when they made it to the playoffs.
I'm not saying that he's the problem. I'm just saying that I would love to not have him get tackled behind the line as often as he did. Jim Brown was unstoppable.
Okay, but here's the thing, and I hate to sound like a little J.J. Redick on this, but who's tackling Jim Brown? A bunch of plumbers and firefighters. You go back to 1957, 1958. In the chat, they're saying Johnny Unitas needed a side gig. You're going back to, that's not what Barry was facing in the 90s when guys were making millions of dollars and the sport had evolved. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of PEDs probably. The guys still under those gigantic shoulder pads.
That's true.
I'm saying the guys going against Barry were a lot bigger and stronger.
It was the 90s, so you were still geared up to stop the run. It's not like now where defenses really have to think more about the pass than they do the run. Still in Barry's era, you're still focusing in on the run, especially if you're playing the Lions.
Well, but actually not more so. I mean, the Lions had some big passing years with Barry. Remember, Scott Mitchell had a gigantic year, and they had a Herman Moore, a wide receiver. Chicago, Walter Payton was the best quarterback and best running back on his team. I mean, name a quarterback that Walter Payton played with.
Well, Jim McMahon.
Okay, yeah. I don't know him. But generally, though, he had famously the worst quarterback play in the history of the league. Chicago Bears are the death of all quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So everybody was
Justin Fields.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame. Justin Fields should have ran when the Bears picked him. So Walter Payton had to do much more, and he was in the 70s when all you did was, at least in the 90s, there was such a thing as a passing game. 70s and 80s, Walter Payton was the entire franchise, much like Jim Brown. But Jim Brown, you know what? It was a different game. A lot of guys ran like crazy back then. I agree with Maggie. It was against inferior talent.
Okay, so those are the running backs for our great debate series. I say Barry Sanders. Perloff says Walter Payton, greatest running back of all time. Coming up in a bit, we'll do best inside linebacker of all time. So not Lawrence Taylor. Not Lawrence Taylor. Inside linebackers, okay? We're all smart enough sports fans to know the difference between an inside and outside linebacker, right? We believe in you guys. All right, coming up, You want to tell us what you think, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Coming up, we do have some news out of Cowboys camp today. Not only that, but one big NFL story finally gets its resolution. We've got all that for you after this CBS Sports Update. Here's Dexter Henry.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Insurance for motorcycles, boats, and RVs for protection on the road and on the water. See how much you can save at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE and Progressive.com. All right, guys. College football news. Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh is expected to be suspended for the first 4 games of the 2023 college football season as part of a negotiated resolution between the program and the NCAA. The Wolverines coach is accused of providing false or misleading information to the NCAA during an investigation into alleged recruiting violations made in 2021 during an extended recruiting dead period stemming from COVID-19. NFL news. The stalemate is over between Saquon Barkley and the Giants. The running back has signed a 1-year adjusted franchise tag or $10.1 million fully guaranteed and up to $11 million with incentives. Running back Josh Jacobs didn't report to the first day of Raiders training camp on Tuesday. The All-Pro running back has not signed his franchise tag. He and the Raiders could not come to an agreement on a contract extension last week. Cowboys All-Pro right guard Zach Martin also didn't report to the start of camp on Tuesday. The O-lineman is currently unhappy with his contract and the team's lack of willingness to rework the deal. I'm Dexter Henry.
Hey, it's Amy Lawrence. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Just ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Perloff, Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff on CBS Sports Radio across the country on our incredible affiliates. You can always download the free Odyssey app. It's crystal clear. If you're ever driving through a bad part of the country and you lose our signal, download the app. Listen to us that way. You can also listen to us on Sirius XM channel 158. We're on youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. The podcast is dynamite. You can just download that wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, let's do a Cowboys quickie. We got some news for you. Dallas Cowboys report a training camp today. No Zach Martin. He's still holding out right now, wants a new contract. But the team has come to terms, Perloff, on a contract for cornerback Trayvon Diggs. This is from about 20 minutes ago. 5 years, $97 million. So he's looking at about $19.5 million a year. Good to be cornerback these days. And he's excellent. So that got done today.
So I'm seeing reporting that he is now tied for third amongst all cornerbacks in the NFL. Number one, Denzel Ward of the Browns. Number two, Jaylen Ramsey of now the Dolphins. Now he's tied with Marlon Humphrey of the Ravens and Marshawn Lattimore of the Saints. That seems about
that
seems about right because, you know, it cycles. That doesn't mean he's the third best cornerback in the league. That might be a little high, but he's certainly in that mix.
And he's already been an All-Pro, a two-time Pro Bowler, and, of course, he's had the 11 interceptions 2 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, he's a crazy ball hawk. He's unbelievable at that. And if you have Micah Parsons panicking the quarterback, that's the kind of cornerback you want. Cornerback. Yeah, I just think he fits that team really well. This is good news. But what the heck is Zach Martin going to say? We're talking about Saquon reacting to Jaylen Brown, $300 million. Zach Martin is very clear. I want a new contract, and you're rewarding 24-year-old Trayvon Diggs. Little tension.
That's your Cowboys quickie. We got more for you. Got a little Jerry. Also, hold Jerry Jones for me for 1 second because we'll get to that in just a moment. We're doing our great debate series today and all this week. Greatest player at their position in the NFL. And it's funny because I think back to the 90s. I'm like, man, Emmitt Smith was an incredible running back.
System.
Stop with the system. But he was an incredible running back. Listen, all-time great offensive line. I know Irvin, too, and Aikman. They're all in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. Everyone's in the Hall. But he did not make my number one running back. For that, I went to Barry Sanders. Perloff.
I went Walter Payton. Now, Emmett, if you had gone to Emmett, oh, man, I would have said, what about that offensive line? You could have run behind that offensive line. I would have gone off on that.
Well, I mean, that's ultimately not the only reason why I didn't go, but Emmett still is the all-time leading rusher. I mean, listen, there were other guys who clearly belong in this debate, like LaDainian Tomlinson.
No.
Marshall Faulk.
In that conversation, yeah, I mean, you weren't going to say
Peterson?
LT, though. LT's great.
I wasn't going to say LT, but there is a part of me that I felt like when I was watching them that I was watching a Hall of Famer. I knew I was watching an all-time great player. For Barry, and why I went with him is just it was what he did on bad teams in the way that he did it. But people are mad at us, Perloff, as they all usually are. 855-212-4CBS. Let's go to our pal Adrian. He's in Maryland. He's not happy because we left someone off the list. What's up, Adrian?
Not happy at all. Not happy at all. I'm agreeing 100% with you guys, producer there. It's got to be Jim Brown or it's got to be Gale Sayers. They're limited in longevity. I understand that. But if you look at the stats and you put them up against those guys, they're just as comparable. And like your producer said, Barry Sanders could have had 200 yards one game and then had 12 or 15 or 30 yards the next game. So those things average out, and that's why I don't think he's the best running back. Perloff, as far as Emmitt Smith, you say anybody could have ran behind that line. Don't forget, when he held out, they were 0-2, correct?
That's true.
Oh, come on. That's such a small sample
well, that
size.
really helped Emmitt.
That's such a small sample size.
Listen, there are so many, like, I also remember, and Adrian, thank you for the phone call and appreciate that. Gale Sayers, I don't think, played enough games to be considered the all-time greatest, but, Marcus Allen was a big hero in my house growing up.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
My brother had posters of Marcus Allen. He was also a big phenomenon.
Marcus Allen, he was, oh, man, you ever see highlights of him in college? You know who I was obsessed with a little bit? Eric Dickerson.
Yes. Well,
just the way he moved.
Single season record.
Yeah, the way he moved and ran so smooth. I think if we were doing since 2000, I would have gone Adrian Peterson over LT because of the explosiveness. If you look at 80, 70 plus yards, Adrian Peterson was old school. Like all these guys.
Adrian Peterson was like a tight end body.
Yeah, he was huge. But I think
not a tight end. I know he wasn't like 6'8", but he was massive.
I got to get numbers to support this, but I feel like when I was a kid, running backs would break 80-yard runs, Tony Dorsett and everything. And now, like, LaDainian Tomlinson occasionally would break one, but they weren't home run hitters like the old school guys.
I should mention now, coming up in the next hour, Chris Johnson, CJ2K, is going to join us.
He's a home run hitter.
You just made me think of it. I'm like, speaking of breaking long runs.
Huge home run hitter.
Chris Johnson's going to join us coming up in the next hour. Sean is in Oregon. He's our pal. Sean, what's up, dude?
Hey, you guys, I got to go with the producer on this, too, Jim Brown. I mean, there's a lot of great running backs out there. You can go Earl Campbell. There's a lot of great ones, right?
Yep.
But Jim Brown, he led the league in rushing twice as many times as Barry Sanders in a time when, you guys talk about firemen and plumbers. That's a weak take. It's era to era. If you're the greatest of your era or anything else, and then back in that era, they did focus on the running game more. There was more guys headhunting for him, but he was unstoppable. He's always been looked at since I was a little kid as being the best of all time. The Browns haven't won a championship since he left. Mm-hmm. Nobody can even name another guy on that championship team but Jim Brown. He was MVP of the league 3 times as many times as Barry Sanders.
I get it.
Jim Brown, he represents the NFL.
Wait. So if you don't count errors at all, then why not put Bronco Nagurski into this conversation? Do you want to do with a little Bronco Nagurski? Should Otto Graham be my quarterback? No, you don't consider all eras when you're doing these debates, do you, Sean? Yeah, well, I look at all the eras and I look what they did, but this guy stands out above and beyond all of them.
Sean, it's a fair point. It's a good one. Thank you so much. I mean, Perloff and I did talk about this. Now, we have our own separate, greatest players we didn't team up on this one. We have our own separate, but we did talk about like Wilt Chamberlain, if eras don't matter, then Wilt Chamberlain shouldn't have been a Jordan LeBron debate last week. Pardon me. It should have been a Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell debate.
Totally.
Yeah.
By the way, I just love saying the name Bronco Nagurski.
Yeah,
I mean, they had much better football names back then. Red Grange, Bronco Nagurski.
Although I think college football still has good names.
Yeah.
They've held steady. Mike is in Ohio. Mike, what's up, dude?
Hey, guys. Good talking to you again. Just want to weigh in on the running back.
Sure.
I think the most exciting, prolific running back, as Perloff mentioned, was Dickerson. He was the greatest one to watch. Great story about him, too, because I remember a 3rd and 30 play when John Robinson was coaching him, and they ran the ball as a drop play to Dickerson on 3rd and 30, gained 29 yards, and John Robinson punted. Like, take the steam out of my engine there, buddy.
Oh, gosh. They didn't have analytics back then.
Oh, yeah. And I really feel probably the most pure running back that had nothing to work with and delivered a beating as much as he got a beating had to be Walter Payton.
Yeah.
The guy played on that concrete field at Soldier Field, and he was hardly ever injured. No offensive line, no quarterback, no offensive weapons. And, I mean, the highlights of that guy just plowing over people in the middle of the field was amazing. It was like Earl Campbell, but not as big. So I'd have to say in my era from the 70s till now, it had to be Payton and then Dickerson.
There you go, Mike. Thank you so much for weighing in.
That's a great point, by the way. Back in the 80s and 90s, like it could be 4th and 1 at the opponent's 32, and that guy was lining up for a punt every time. John Robbins, those coaches punted every time they could.
That's what I'm saying. There was just like the analytics. They would, if they saw like Brandon Staley, those old coaches, their heads would explode.
Well, even so, I'll bet you go back when Brandon Jacobs. Oh, Brandon Staley. Oh, sorry. Exactly. But I remember in the 90s, nobody punted on the other side. It was such an insane thing. Like they're so conservative.
It's so true. 855-2124-CBS, 855-212-4227. Continue your phone calls. Greatest running back of all time. Coming up, we got good news and we got some bad news for one Super Bowl contender. A little good news, a little bad news. Get to all that. Don't move. Maggie, Perloff, you, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
My summer is going to be ruined. They're going to put a pin in my right pinky, so I'm not going to be able to do anything for about 4 weeks.
Do you think you could live stream your pinky surgery?
Does anyone know? Am I unconscious for that?
No, that's a local anesthesia. When I got my wisdom teeth out, I was actually living in New York City. Usually you're supposed to have someone come meet you at the doctor's office once you're under general anesthesia.
I like where this is going.
Yes, but I was alone. I didn't have anyone to come. So they were like, oh, we'll just get you a taxi cab. And I don't know what I told the guy about where I lived, but all of a sudden, I'm seeing the numbers getting higher and higher and higher. I lived all the way downtown. They had to go all the way around, and he dropped me off. I had him drop me off at a supermarket, and I bought God knows what.
Ice cream.
Yeah, ice cream.
That sounds like a good time.
La-di-da.
They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff. It is Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio. Glad to have you with a lot happening, including our great debate series, which continues this week. Greatest individual player at their position in the history of the NFL. We'll get back to that as we're doing running backs today and inside linebacker. So we'll get back to that in a moment. But we are really confused. I think I can speak for both of us on what the heck is going on in San Francisco today.
Yeah, a lot of contradictory headlines.
Yeah, why does this seem so difficult? Now, here's the really good news for the 49ers fans out there. The good news is that Brock Purdy has been cleared, quote, without restriction. Brock Purdy cleared without restriction, according to general manager John Lynch. Now, that's the first sentence. The second sentence is, now having said that, we're sticking and we're adhering to a plan, and he's going to be on a pitch count, and he can't practice 3 days in a row. So
that sounds like, refresh my memory on what restriction means. That sure sounds like a restriction to me.
Yeah, he's cleared without restriction, but they're sticking to the plan.
So does that mean he's fully healthy to start week one, but he can only play 3 quarters of week one, and the fourth quarter, Trey Lance has to come in?
Well, so according to Kyle Shanahan, he won't practice for 3 days in a row, but when he is out there, then he'll be operating as the starter with the first team offense. Now, this was interesting because here was Kyle Shanahan. Is this yesterday afternoon? Like after we got off the show, was talking with Steve Wyche of NFL Network and said the quarterback situation is not set in stone.
We got 3 guys who can play, and there's only one spot, and we have a good team. So I see it as a cool situation. Last year we had some unknown. We believed in Trey, but he hadn't gone out and done it yet. And he lost that opportunity, which happens in football. And we had another guy come in. Brock got that opportunity. So now we're in this situation, and it's just, I get how everyone wants something set in stone, but it's not set in stone. But I love the options.
Okay, but now we get Brock Purdy is cleared without restrictions, but there actually are restrictions, but the quarterback situation isn't set in stone. Do you honestly think that Trey Lance, I'm going to put Sam Darnold to the side, do you think Trey Lance really has any shot to win this job?
Yeah, because I think that Brock Purdy's health is in question, and that's the only reason. I think if Purdy's healthy enough to go, he's a starter. I think he's been
cleared.
I mean, come on.
That's why this is confusing.
If he can survive the training camp and if he plays in the preseason, which I don't think he will, then, and he's totally healthy, then he's a week 1 starter. No, I agree with you. It's not a clean competition, but Kyle Shanahan's got such a rocky history with this. I just feel like all 3 quarterbacks are going to play. I think Purdy will start, then Lance or Darnold will come in, and then someone will get hurt. First of all, they clearly don't protect their quarterbacks as well, some teams. They ask them to stay in there and take some hits. And second of all, it's just the way Kyle Shanahan has always been. It's just, I don't know. It just feels since he took over the Niners, the quarterbacks have gone down a lot. He's never made any sense. So he's the quarterback whisperer, right? So he can make any quarterback and turn them good. So what do? They basically sell everything to move up to number 3 to finally get. He's like, well, I can make any quarterback good, but I need an elite quarterback. So they get their elite quarterback, Trey Lance. Then they're not even going to play him. So they're going to go back to the Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft. So I don't think Shanahan knows what he wants at quarterback. I think he's being honest when he says, well, we'll see what happens. I don't think he thinks long-term at that position. It never makes sense with him, right?
It doesn't. And I think at some point it's going to catch up to him. I know he's a great coach, but this has been one of the issues for this team, which has been a great team. Now, Trey Lance and Sam Darnold are slated to split the first team reps when Purdy's not out there. And that doesn't bode well for Trey Lance either, to be honest, because he's been there longer than Darnold. If he's healthy, which John Lynch said he looked healthier than he has, Trey Lance has looked as healthy as he has this year, coming off that foot injury, he should be able to beat Sam Darnold out in a quarterback.
I love that your concern is Sam Darnold, the former number 3 overall pick in the NFL draft, not the fact that a 7th-round rookie just beat him. Doesn't that worry you as well?
I watched Brock Purdy for 10 games, and he was pretty damn good. So
actually, yeah, he's pretty good, but it's not like Brock Purdy's out there looking like Dan Marino. He's just throwing a bunch of 12-yard passes to George Kittle. It's just, I am very confused by this whole situation. Why did they draft Trey Lance?
Well, that's one of the great mysteries of this world. Now, that's the good news for the 49ers. Brock Purdy, cleared without restrictions, but restricted, whatever, semantics. And that's the good news. Now, the bad news is something you're also going to have to help me with, because I feel like I've been doing this for a little while.
Sure.
And so when I see this tweet from David Lombardi, who covers the 49ers for The Athletic, does a fantastic job. He says, John Lynch says the 49ers do not expect Nick Bosa to be with the team to begin camp, as they're working with Bosa's agent to reach an agreement on a long-term contract extension.
Okay.
Where I come from, that means Nick Bosa's holding out. Couldn't this have been said a lot simpler here? But I don't see it anywhere in the media that Nick Bosa's holding out. Is it illegal to say that he's holding out? What's the difference between this and a holdout?
No, Maggie, you're totally misunderstanding the situation.
Oh, enlighten me.
He's just not going to be a practice because he's wanting a new contract.
Yeah, right.
Whereas a guy who's holding out is not at practice because he wants a new contract. Yeah, you're right. I have no idea.
Are they trying to protect Bosa? They don't want to use not the reporters, I'm saying, the team. Are they trying to protect him so it doesn't look like he's holding out when that's exactly what he's doing? So he's not going to practice till he gets a new contract. Where I come from, that's a holdout.
Yeah, I think it's a classic holdout. I'm actually looking around. Somebody took the headline from David Lombardi and said the same exact thing. Not expected to practice until he gets a new contract. But then other people are saying, he's holding out. So I don't think there's any kind of legal distinction here or any kind of contract distinction.
But here's the question. All right, so when are they going to get the contract done? Are we talking about a matter of days or weeks?
I don't know, because these two players that on the defensive side of the ball who are making news this week, Nick Bosa and Chris Jones on the Chiefs.
Yep, Chris Jones is not a practice either. He's holding out.
Yeah, he's holding out. They are the two most important. Well, Micah Parsons is in there too. Those guys, basically the Niners are nothing without Nick Bosa. The Chiefs' defense is nothing without Chris Jones. And I would say the same with Dallas and Micah Parsons. But Bosa is so important to that team. When he was hurt a couple years ago, that almost hurt them like a quarterback going down. They were terrible. Their quarterback also went down that year.
Yeah.
Because it is the Niners. Everybody gets hurt or no one gets hurt. I just can't say enough of how much he means to that team.
Yeah, T.J. Watt, too.
You saw them with or without T.J. Watt. Aaron Donald, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know how many games the Rams are going to win this year, but you're right. Nick Bosa is one of those guys where he's unhappy, you lose him, it's almost as bad as going through something with your quarterback. Maybe not to that extent, but right there. Okay, the great debate series continues today. You can hit the music, Stu.
The Great Debate Series. Best running back ever.
Okay, now we're going through this for the new audience. Great Debate Series. We start with running backs. And for me, Barry Sanders was the obvious choice because of his peak, the 10 years, the dominance, and no one was doing it like Barry. I mean, we can talk about players who maybe had more rushing touchdowns than him, players who maybe won more MVPs than he did, like Walter Payton or Jim Brown. However, the way that Barry, I can't say revolutionized because I'm not sure if he was the first, but to me, he was the first who could dance like that and still be so effective. Did anyone do it before?
Well, I don't think revolutionized. Yeah, I don't think he was the first and the last. I don't know if anybody can make moves like Barry. I think it's like LeBron. Nobody's like LeBron. Barry, to me, was irreplaceable. The thing about Walter Payton, though, show me a highlight of Barry Sanders blocking. There isn't a highlight. Walter Payton would
I didn't have one of Deion Sanders blocking either, but he was my best corner, or tackling rather, but he was my best corner.
Walter Payton would punish guys on blocking. He would block. He would throw touchdowns. He would jump over guys. He would stiff arm you, and you would not even want to go home to your house. You were so embarrassed because of what Walter Payton just did to you. And he had all the records and all the accolades. Offense wasn't quite as explosive, so his numbers were below Barry sometimes, but Walter Payton was everything to those Chicago Bears, man of the year, just a full resume. And he could do all the things Barry Sanders could do, but he could also do some of the things that Earl Campbell could do.
Yeah, the one I love Barry. He will always be my number one. The 2 MVPs, the 15,000 yards, doing it on these bad teams where you could still see the brilliance, even though the teams were not good. The problem with Barry is he doesn't have the postseason success, but to me, that doesn't get in the way of what he was able to do. Now, Samter, who has now just been called the producer lately.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Ringing endorsement for Jim Brown.
I mean, do I have a name? Samter kind of counts, but here's the question. I love Barry. I have Barry as my number 2 behind Jim Brown. But do we get lost Barry was great, but do we get lost because he was so spectacular looking? Like the moves that no one else could do. It's kind of like, Jordan with the dunking or even like Vince Carter. They're so exciting and they were so flamboyant and so beautiful to watch that maybe as great as he was, do we look at that and say, wow, he was just so great at these moves and these jukes and these inside outs?
Hold on one second. If you are trying to tell me that Barry Sanders was all sizzle, no steak, we're going to have a problem.
No. I'm not saying no steak. I'm saying big steak, nice porterhouse.
Right?
I have him as my number 2. But I'm saying, are we clouded a little bit because there was so much sizzle?
Let's go to the phones. 855-212-4CBS. So you know where we stand. I say Barry. Perloff says sweetness. And Samter coming in with Jim Brown. Stu, would you like to be...
He's going to say Josh Jacobs.
I want the Curtis Martin or something?
I think the show's not complete unless someone makes the OJ argument. Because,
oh, boy.
I mean,
Stu, go ahead.
OJ's 2,000-yard season is crazy. Watch the highlights of that, and that dude was ridiculous.
The Bills have not taken him out of the Ring of Honor, as far as I know.
Well, he's in the Hall of Fame. Of what he was.
His bust is sitting there in Canton, Ohio, isn't it? I don't think they took it out.
There's another name that we just keep not mentioning, and I understand that there's all this talk about how great of a team he had around him, but Emmitt Smith is the all-time leading rusher.
Yeah.
And Emmitt Smith was incredible. You forget how good he was.
I'm not forgetting. I'm definitely not forgetting how good.
But nobody is talking about him, and I feel like it's almost unfair that he gets hurt because his offensive line was so good, that his offense and his team was so good around him.
If Emmitt had gone to Detroit, do you think he would have done what Barry Sanders did?
I probably not, but that's the thing is we can't know. All we know is what we saw. That Emmitt Smith, when he touched the ball, was unstoppable. He was incredible. He was fast. He was quick. He had great vision.
I mean, same amount of rushing titles as Barry, same number of MVPs as Barry, and also as the 3 Super Bowls. Listen, I'm not taking anything away from Emmitt. Let's go to the phones. Our pal Big Dave's on the line from Kentucky. Dave, how you been?
Doing well, guys. How y'all doing?
We're great. Cowboys camp open today, so I was hoping we'd hear from you.
Yep, I saw that. On the greatest running back thing, listen, you can manipulate certain stats. The importance of certain stats, one position to the next, from one sport to the next, honestly. But when it comes to the running back position in professional football, you cannot debate the importance of yards per carry. Thus, the man is Barry Sanders.
5 yards per carry. Amazing. I mean, listen, Jim Brown also 5.2 yards per carry, and this is no disrespect to Jim Brown, we did take era into account, or at least I know I did, and I think you did as well, Perloff.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough to leave off. I mean, that's the one thing with Walter Payton is yards per carry are not as high. I mean, Emmett's are low. Emmett's at 4.2. So, yeah, I agree. I don't have much of an answer for that. I mean, is Jamal Charles the greatest running back of all time? I know he almost ran for 6 yards a carry.
Well, and listen, you get to play where Walter Payton never got to play any kind of home games in any sort of dome, you know?
Oh, that's a great
the weather
point.
part
Thank
of this.
you.
I mean,
Hello,
I'm not trying to give you,
I appreciate
ammo,
that.
But, Dave, how else you doing, pal? Good?
Yeah, doing real well. Got no complaints. Living life and haven't been able to catch you guys as much lately, but I always enjoy the show when I do, and y'all are sounding great. And go Cowboys, right, Perloff?
No.
Dave, appreciate you, man. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, nobody can be surprised that I'm not singing the praises of Emmitt Smith.
Yeah,
by the way.
no. But people are going to say you're an Eagles fan and I'm a Bills fan, and we're holding it against Emmitt Smith. Not the case. Emmitt Smith
beat you in the Super Bowl?
Kicked my team's behind.
Oh my God.
Thoroughly. I do not hold it against him.
I mean, Emmitt and everybody else who was wearing a star in any of those games.
Yeah, it's like misery loves company.
But
they killed everybody.
This is nothing personal, but the person I really hated was Michael Irvin because Emmitt was great against the Eagles, but man, Irvin would come in and break your back. He was so good. And Troy Aikman was pretty good too.
Yeah, pretty good. Julian is in Myrtle Beach. Julian, how are you?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, you're talking about greatest running backs, and you forget Gale Sayers.
We're not forgetting, and it's a great call because Gale Sayers was amazing, but Gale Sayers played 68 games.
Well, that's because of injuries, but, the thing is, Gale Sayers were making the guys leave their jocks on the field.
Yes, if that was the argument, Julian, it's a fair one. Thank you. But, I mean, are you really going to compare somebody who, yes, 5 yards per carry just like Barry, but Barry Sanders 153 games to Gale Sayers 68. It just is too short of a career.
Gale Sayers highlights are something else.
Dude.
It's crazy. Gale Sayers, there's certain players. I was looking at a player, Elroy Hirsch, nicknamed Crazy Legs Hirsch.
Yeah.
Back in those old highlights, there were just some guys who could juke those, because the defenders weren't quite as athletic, that could just leave those defenders lying in the dust. I think Gale Sayers was one of them. Obviously, Jim Brown as well. Barry's the almost. But I think it's hard to evaluate 50s and 60s. I think we have a good reason. Johnny Unitas was not as good a quarterback as John Elway. I'm sorry. Yeah, he had all that success. I know we're not doing quarterback, but my point is, I think there's a reason that you might not have a player from back then at number one.
All right, coming up, Chris Johnson will lend his opinion and thought to this debate. Of course, you remember him as CJ2K, former running back for the Titans, for the Cardinals, had a season with the Jets in there as well. Now he's the host of the Smash and Dash podcast on the Believe Network. So we'll get the thoughts of Chris Johnson, not only on our debate, but also the state of running back. Saquon Barkley signing on for a adjusted franchise tag today. He can earn up to $900,000 more in incentives, basically tied to the Giants making the playoffs. So we'll get his thoughts on that. You're welcome to weigh in. Did you have a poll question up? And did Samter put up a competing poll?
Yeah, I was very upset.
I put up a poll, who's a better running back. I only put Walter Payton and Barry Sanders on there. I was not getting the Jim Brown thing in there. Is that what you're upset about, Mike?
Very upset. So I put out my own poll on the Maggie and Perloff Twitter page, adding Jim Brown to it. So there you go.
Can we update the polls here?
Yeah, the good news for me is that Jim Brown is still beating Walter Payton on my poll, but he's getting crushed by Barry. Barry leads by 51%, 28% to Jim Brown, 21% for Walter Payton. So at least it gives me some credence that Jim Brown is second on this list, but he's still getting crushed by Barry.
And what about your poll, Perloff?
I got 63% Barry, 37% Walter Payton.
Okay. 855-212-4CBS. Go to @Andrew Perloff, @Maggie and Pearl. I mean, you can check out my feed, too. I'm at Maggie Gray. No poll up right now. Just hear me lamenting about losing things in my home. I know. I lost something in my house. We'll get this later. There is nothing more annoying than losing something in your own home. I know it's somewhere. Where is it?
Is it a phone?
No, it wasn't a phone. It was one of my kids' things. Anyway, 855-212-4CBS. Chris Johnson joins us next. Don't move. Maggie and Perloff, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Maggie and Perloff, running backs run the day today. Not just Saquon Barkley signs his adjusted franchise tag. Josh Jacobs is reportedly out of Las Vegas while the Raiders are starting camp, but also the Maggie and Perloff Great Debate Series continues today. We're talking about greatest players of all time at their position in the NFL. Today, we're doing running backs, and we're so pleased to be joined now by a man who was the Offensive Player of the Year in the NFL, an All-Pro, a multi-time Pro Bowler. Chris Johnson, good enough to join us. CJ2K, now a co-host on the Smash and Dash podcast on the Believe Network with Lendell White. Chris, thanks so much for the time today. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Man, we're so excited to have you today. Let's start with the Great Debate Series. So Perloff and I are both naming our greatest running backs of all time at the position. I went with Barry Sanders. Perloff?
I went with Walter Payton.
Where do you fall in this debate?
Barry Sanders. I got to go Barry. Barry's my idol. That's somebody that I grew up loving to watch. Somebody that I studied his film and tried to emulate certain things in my game like him. So Barry will always go down as the greatest running back in history to me.
Well, yeah, but you obviously saw Barry. You didn't see Walter Payton and Jim Brown. So of what you know of those guys, say something nice about my guy Walter Payton.
Nah, those guys nice. Those guys are guys that I studied film on. I watch their highlights, and those guys are great guys as well. Myself, I never got a chance to watch them like actually in a real game and things like that. So, and then also, neither one of those guys rushed for 2,000 yards, so I can't put those guys above Barry.
There we go. Chris Johnson joining us, CJ2K. I mean, if we made the debate, if we put like a time parameter on it, say like since the year 2000 or something, we updated this a little bit. Barry retired in 98. Walter Payton, obviously, before that. So if we made it from like 2000 on, who do you think is the greatest?
Ah, man, you got some guys in there. You got like LT, LaDainian Tomlinson, Adrian Peterson. You have myself. Those are, I put those at the top.
Now, when you look at, say, those three guys, including yourself, it seems to me that you all had kind of different styles. What was the difference for someone who didn't see the three of you play? How would you describe the difference between your game and LaDainian Tomlinson and Adrian Peterson?
Well, I think my game and Adrian Peterson was more like a power back that still had that breakaway speed. So when he get out in the open, he still can take it to the house. I was more of a zone scheme running back, but I still could do the power game and stuff like that. I had a whole lot of speed, breaking tackles, elusiveness, and things like that. When you talk about LT, I wouldn't say he had the top end speed, but he was a guy that was real elusive, that they use in the screen game a lot, that can run in between the tackles, outside the tackles, can make guys miss, and he definitely was a touchdown machine.
Chris Johnson is joining us, of course, former CJ2K, now host of the Smash and Dash podcast on the Believe Network with Lendell White, who you shared a backfield with in Tennessee. And, I can't imagine, Chris, some of the conversations that maybe you're having with fellow running backs or guys you played with in the NFL with, all the talk about running back salaries right now. First of all, were you invited to the Zoom call that was, Saquon Barkley and Austin Eckler and Josh Jacobs and some of those guys? Did they invite any retired guys on the Zoom?
I don't think they did. They probably talked amongst the guys that was currently in the NFL and currently getting paid and currently trying to get deals. I think that probably was something that they came up with and stuff like that.
Are you surprised that we're seeing, besides some outliers, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, are you surprised we're seeing running back salaries go down as opposed to move up like we're seeing in other offensive positions?
No, I'm not surprised at all. This has been going on for years, for years and years. Even if you speak of let's say the Derrick Henry contract, what Derrick Henry was doing, like within those years, is no way that he's shouldn't be the highest paid running back or even getting paid some of the type of money that the receivers is making, especially on the team that he's on. He should be the highest paid player on that team. So, no, I'm definitely not surprised. This been going on for years and years. And if you just look at it, like, we're probably like one of the lowest next to the kickers, like as far as salary we make per year. So it's just terrible. Like tight ends make more than us. Like it's crazy.
Chris, do you think there's anything running backs can do?
What I think that would be beneficial to us as a whole is, and I'm sure they would have to go back like within the CBA and things like that. But I think they should maximize running back deals, especially like coming into the league, like 2 to 3 year deals. That way, if you come in early, you do your thing, you up for another contract in 2 or 3 years after that, and don't let them put the franchise tag on it, because if they get a 3 year deal and still get 2 years of franchise, we're still at 5 years. So if you do a 3 year deal, no franchise tag, when it's time for them to go back to the table to re-up, they're still in their prime. They're only 3 years within their career. And then if they sign a 3, 4, 5 year deal after that, by the time they play out that deal, okay, you can go on and go younger or get rid of them, because at that point they done played 7, 8 years already. So it would just make it fair to the running backs and things like that, because it's just crazy to sit there and probably be the best player on the team, and the receiver is making $22 million, and you sitting up here making $7, $8, $9 million, like at the peak of your career. Like, it don't add up.
You know, Chris Johnson is joining us, a former Offensive Player of the Year, All-Pro, Pro Bowler, running back, mostly for the Tennessee Titans. But Chris, I'm so curious, like, how that would work in a locker room, right? Like, would the other guys on a team, you know, feel a certain type of way about running backs getting some preferential treatment if you actually were able to make those changes? Like, would you see offensive linemen and D tackles saying, well, why can't I sign a new contract after 2 years? Like, do you think that would fracture a locker room?
I don't think so, because when you look at it, like those guys, like receivers, D linemen, offensive linemen, those guys can be in year 12, 13, still making $20 million. Like, they still get paid that type of money towards the end of their career. Like receivers going around. Like, I remember when I was playing in Arizona, and this was like 5 years ago. So ain't no telling what the price would be in these days. But 5 years ago, I'm playing with Larry Fitzgerald. He's in year 15, 16, and still making $8, $9 million a year. Rather than a running back that's after year 10, you're probably making league minimum $1 million a year. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think they would be mad, because they got time to make their money. When it comes to running backs, we on the time our time is running.
Yeah.
So we got to get our money right now within this. I would say for a running back career, you have to get your money within the first 5 years, because after that they starting to say you're getting old, you're losing a step. They're looking for somebody younger. Rather than a receiver at year 8, they still signing 3, 4 year deals worth $80 million, $100 million. So they got time.
Talking to former NFL running back Chris Johnson. So, Chris, if you could do it again, would you still play running back?
No, not at all. I would play receiver or cornerback or something, but, you know, because like within my situation, like I got paid real good money. And I wish I could have continued to get paid real good money towards the end of my career and things like that, but that don't happen within the position. That's the reason, like financially wise, I would definitely say I would play a different position. But my time coming up, like college, going to the NFL and stuff like that, it was a running back league. Like coming up, everybody wanted to play running back. It wasn't the sexy thing to do to be a receiver back then, or the guy to be the receiver. Now these days, it's the receiver. It's a receiver game.
What about your kids? What would you tell them if they're playing football and choosing a position?
Yeah, they play. Actually, they play. They're on Instagram at the Twin Juices. That's their Instagram. But I train them, and they play as athletes. So they play everything. They play cornerback, receiver, running back. They play everything. But they definitely, for sure, won't be running backs.
Chris Johnson joining us. He's the co-host of the Smash and Dash podcast on the Believe Network with Lendell White. Now, just a few more minutes with you, Chris, and thanks again for taking the time with us today. But, Saquon Barkley signed his adjusted franchise tag today. So could, with incentives, maybe make another $900,000. It's not nothing, but it's not the money that other players are making in the locker room. Do you think Saquon should have held out longer, held out for the season? Like, would you have advised that if he asked you for your advice?
I don't think in his situation, I don't think I would advise him to sit out, because if he would have sat out and came back next year, he was going to be in the same situation. They still got 2 years to franchise tag him. So it was kind of a situation where they got all the leverage. Like, you got to think about it. His franchise tag was like $10 million, and he came back for $900,000, but not even guaranteed. It's incentive based.
Yep.
So he got to rush for this amount of yards to get that extra money. So that was nothing, man. That was bull. But anyways.
What about Josh Jacobs? So he's kind of going the other direction, right? So Saquon got it done at training camp now and will go on with the season. But for Josh Jacobs, I mean, I think he's planning to wait this out a little bit. What advice would you give to him?
Man, it's just, you got to – everybody make decision for themselves and what they think is best. And I ended up going through a situation where I held out the whole training camp and came back. And that probably was like one of the worst years of my career. If I can go back, I probably say I would have went in and did certain things. I don't know if I would have practiced full out or whatever, but I would have been there around the team, making sure I'm in shape and those type of things and trying to figure it out. But in his situation, him just missing the whole year and coming back and being in the same situation next year is definitely going to be interesting to see how that goes. If you look at Le'Veon Bell, he did that, and when he came back, he was never the same player again. So it's going to be tough. I can't even lie. It's going to be tough.
Chris, can't tell you how much we appreciate this, getting your perspective, not only on our great debate series, greatest running back of all time, but also on the current state of running backs. Again, the podcast is called Smash and Dash with Lendell White. It's on the Believe Podcast Network. Chris Johnson, thanks so much for the time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We got to check out that Instagram account with the kids.
I got to, first of all, set up an Instagram account for my kids. That sounds like it's a lot more exciting.
Kids.
Yeah, I just think.
You have 2 daughters. They're
Chris
not
has so much pride for his son's Instagram account. I got to get into this.
I mean, his daughters basically run our social media account. So
I know.
Actually, they have their own accounts.
Perloff's daughters, not Chris's.
Yeah.
No, Perloff's got bigger things going on at his house.
Yeah.
First of all, your pet should have its own Instagram.
I know. Well, I don't know if he's more of a Snapchat, TikTok kind of tortoise, but
Instagram too passe for him.
We had a major pet catastrophe today, and you were on the phone when it actually happened.
Yeah,
have you heard panic like that in someone's voice?
It was like, I gotta go. It was like a, oh my gosh, I gotta get off the phone right now.
It was super gross. Should I share now, or should we do it?
Hold on one second. Wait on that. Dexter's here.
Are you curious, though, Dexter?
I'm very curious. What pet is this?
It's a tortoise.
Tortoise.
A Herman's tortoise.
Maggie, I just saw your face. It looked like you were like, this shouldn't be this serious, but it was this serious.
It was like to the point where
this was legit.
I thought you were
all of you would have panicked in this situation.
Okay, all right.
It was like that panicky situation where like someone has like raw chicken on their hands and the water's boiling over the stove, and all of a sudden something happens. You were like, I'm in a bind. I gotta go.
Yeah, there was a time. This is for very gross reasons. There was a very severe time limit on this. If I had let the problem grow, then I would have been just doomed.
Okay.
This is a good tease for this.
Save it. All true. It all comes your way next. Also, our great debate series does continue. Next, we'll do greatest inside linebacker of all time. Greatest inside linebacker of all time. That comes your way next after this CBS Sports Update with Dexter Henry.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
All right, guys, we kick off this update with NFL news. The Cowboys, they are looking to keep homegrown talent in Dallas on long-term deals. According to ESPN, the team signed two-time Pro Bowl cornerback Trayvon Diggs to a 5-year, $97 million extension through 2028 that included a $21.25 million signing bonus. Saquon Barkley, he signed a 1-year adjusted franchise tag worth $10.1 million fully guaranteed and up to $11 million with incentives. NBA news. Celtics star Jaylen Brown, he secured the bag. According to reports, the forward has agreed to sign a 5-year, $304 million Supermax contract extension, the richest deal in NBA history. Brown will make $31.8 million next season in the final year of his previous deal. He is slated to make $52.3 million when the contract kicks in during the 2024-25 season and $69.1 million in the 2028-29 season. That is the final year of the deal. On the diamond this evening, the Twins, they go for their 5th straight win as they host the Mariners. The Yankees, winners of 3 straight games, host the Mets, losers of 2 in a row as round 2 of the Subway Series gets underway. And the Astros, they look to move within a game of first place in the division as they host the AL West leading Rangers. I'm Dexter Henry.
'You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. Minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
All right, this portion of the show is brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck in a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancialgroup.com. So my Twitter poll is not helping me out here. We're debating today the greatest running back of all time to start in the Great Debate Series. Yep. I had Walter Payton. Maggie, you had?
Barry Sanders.
Yeah, so in my poll, Barry is killing Walter, 64-36. But you know what? I just think voters are younger. They don't understand the greatness of sweetness.
They're younger. Barry started in 1989. It's not like it wasn't.
They're just a little bit younger.
Recent.
Yeah, I just think that Walter Payton's a more complete back. That's the gist of my argument. The gist of yours is Barry Sanders' 80-yard touchdown run.
Well, it's kind of like it's like how you won all the Michael Jordan versus LeBron James debates. You were just like, watch him.
It's like it's the Supreme Court pornography argument. You know it when you see it. That's a good one for Barry Sanders.
For Barry Sanders, I know he's the greatest because I watched the games. Let's go to the phones though at 855-212-4CBS because Ed is in California with someone who we had not considered at all. Ed, who do you have?
I have not in the not in the overall greatness, but Bo Jackson should be in the top 10.
I know. Well, we're doing a top one, and listen, nobody loves nobody loves Bo Jackson. Ed, thank you for the phone call more than me and Perloff, but he just played 38 games. I mean, there's just not enough there because he got hurt.
I mean, he belongs in this conversation, believe it or not, in the sense that there's never been a more talented running back. As talented as Barry Sanders is, as talented as Walter Payton, and even Jim Brown, Bo Jackson is Bo Jackson. Does that make sense? I mean, first of all, he's the greatest. Yeah. If you ever played Tecmo Bowl growing up, Bo Jackson is famously the greatest Tecmo Bowl player of all time. He was just so spectacular. He was Earl Campbell combined with Barry. He had the speed of Barry and the power of Earl Campbell. I can't say enough.
All right, Chris is in Texas, has got a couple more for us. Chris, I just let the record show we did bring up Emmitt Smith. We're not being haters here. We did bring up Emmitt Smith, but who else you got?
No way Barry's better than Emmitt. Emmitt's the all-time leading rusher.
You're biased.
Barry quit.
You're totally biased.
I know, but I'm talking about
you. You're an Eagles fan.
Everyone, we're all from somewhere, but
my other one, Tony Dorsett, because that was my childhood hero.
Wait, do you think Emmitt was better than Tony Dorsett? Because I think Dorsett was better than Emmitt.
No, Emmitt's better than Dorsett, but I looked up to Dorsett as a kid.
Yeah.
Emmitt's only a few years older than me, so.
Well, you could still look up to him, but I understand what you're saying. I mean, listen, Tony Dorsett, the home run threat that he was, and Chris, thank you for the phone call. Hall of Famer, obviously, Super Bowl champion, obviously, but like the home run threat of Tony Dorsett was up there amongst the greatest.
Yeah, I mean, if you put Tony Dorsett behind that line in the 1990s, he would have gone crazy. Again, Emmett it was more quantity than quality. He just lasted a long time, got 1 million carries, and he was very resilient. His most famous game, I think, is against the Giants, where he played with a hurt shoulder, ran for 200-something yards. He just was constant and consistent. But we're talking about number one. You need some spectacular. And Emmett was a little behind those guys in spectacular. Is that?
It's hard for me because I just watch Emmett so thoroughly kick so much ass. It was like.
Really? I don't.
Yeah.
That's not my experience with Emmett. Emmett was consistently very good. Again, I'm less of a compiler guy. Like I'm picturing Emmett in my mind, and then I'm picturing Bo Jackson streaking down the sideline. They're not the same thing.
Yeah, but we don't have Emmett or Bo. Again, I have Barry Sanders. Perloff has Walter Payton. All right, let's do it. Let's get it to our inside linebackers on the greatest debate series.
The Great Debate Series. Best inside linebacker ever.
All right, Perloff, you get to go first on this one.
Okay, so we're talking about inside linebacker, right?
Yes.
Like that guy who runs after the running back and hits and tackles. So I presume you want the toughest guy possible for this. So to me, there's only one answer. Dick Butkus. I mean, if you think of in your mind what is a tough inside linebacker, if you don't think of Dick Butkus, then you're not an old-time NFL fan. I watched a million highlights last night, and it was ferocious. That is the only word I can use to describe him. Of course, he had all the accolades. He was Defensive Player of the Year, multi-time All-Pro, multi-time Pro Bowler. In fact, 5-time first-team All-Pro. Is in top of every list. Mike, do you have the sound? I don't know if we're playing sound of this. I just love the NFL film sound on Dick Butkus highlights is the best of all time.
I want to just let them know that they've been hit. And when they get up, they don't have to look to see who was that hit them. Shouldn't be any puzzle. When they come to, they got to say, well, it must have been Butkus that got me.
He gave everything he had on every play.
Seriously, he left everything in the kitchen sink on. It would be 2nd and 4 in week 3 of a meaningless game. He would chase you like his life depended on it. Went sideline to sideline faster than any linebacker of his time. And he's just the baddest man in these highlights.
Okay, I see your Dick Butkus, and I'm going to raise you Ray Lewis.
Who?
Yes.
No, he's pretty good.
The greatest inside linebacker of all time, the 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, the 7-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time Super Bowl champ, and Super Bowl MVP, the only player in NFL history with 40 sacks and 30 interceptions. Most career solo tackles. Most tackles in a single season. And, of course, you get the theatrics with Ray.
No more excuses. Anybody come into our house, we'll take care of business. If they want to be here, let's hit them. Today is personal because it's on us. And if they think they can run the damn ball, they fooling their damn selves. So let's find out who came to play football today. There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. Today is all we got.
Okay. Now, if we're going to go off the field stuff, obviously Ray's got a lot there, too. So I can't just go with the positive and gloss over the negative, but, obviously very, very high-profile murder case. So Ray Lewis has that, but in terms of on the field and in terms of, it's not just about the ferociousness, but everyone you talked to with Ray Lewis talked about how much tape he watched, what a cerebral player he was, too. So you combine the physicality and the smarts, and to me, the greatest inside linebacker ever.
I love stories where quarterbacks are like, I'm sitting there calling the play, then Ray Lewis will complete my sentence. Like, how did he know the play? Because he could diagnose what the offense was doing so well. Unbelievable. And also, too, I would give Ray, because of what you mentioned, he's more of a modern style linebacker because he could play effectively against the pass. But I do think that you can't really have a guy who is the second best player on his own team.
Oh,
as the greatest of all. There is something going on there where the Ravens seem to have something team-oriented going on where Ditka, and he wasn't on the 85 Bears. Ditka was the Bears defense.
Yeah.
He was the only star on that defense. He was kind of a singular force where Ray Lewis was part of a collective.
Let's go to the phones because John is in Portland, Oregon. He's got something to say about our inside linebacker debate. Hi, John.
Hi, Maggie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
As far as linebackers go, I'm going to go back to the 50s and when they were hitters. They may not have the statistics with interceptions, but it's a toss-up. Nitschke and Bednarik.
Yeah.
Those are my two. And I'm going with Nitschke because he was a bad man.
John, thank you for the call. Nitschke and Bednarik. I mean, listen, the award is named after Chuck Bednarik. So, obviously, but.
Wait, what's the, isn't the linebacker award's called the Butkus Award, isn't it?
I thought there's a Bednarik Award.
I think there is, but what's it for?
I think that's in college.
It is in college. Yeah.
But I don't think Bednarik was really a middle linebacker.
I think the Bednarik is the best defensive player overall.
Yes, overall defensive
But I don't think Bednarik really was. I think basically the Bears invented middle linebacker, from what I understand. It wasn't Butkus. It was somebody else before him. But I don't think Bednarik played middle linebacker. Ray Nitschke, crazy. I mean, his best skill was being totally psychotic on the field, which you can't underestimate at this position.
I think a lot of these guys have that. Cowboys open training camp today. Not everyone in attendance, so what does it mean? Also, what's going on with Bronny James? We've got all the latest for you after a scary incident yesterday. Don't move.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Jokic with the only ever 30, 20, 10 triple-double in the history of the NBA Finals, and Perloff is not impressed.
It's so boring.
Wow, and you're a massive NBA fan, so I feel like for you to say that.
I'm not a massive 8-footer fan. I like high-flying dunks, very deep three-pointers. So I like LeBron James, I like Steph Curry, I like Michael Jordan.
How varied in people you had there.
I do not like...
greatest ever, and that's it. Everyone else can go screw.
What is he doing that's exciting? You're saying that I'm denigrating his greatness. I'm not. He's unbelievable.
You just don't want to watch it.
He's simply unstoppable, but I think it's boring.
They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
Yeah, we are. Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff. Very, very busy Tuesday, and we're going to get to the latest going on with Bronny James, LeBron's son, who suffered a cardiac arrest at a basketball practice yesterday morning at USC, Perloff. But before we get to that, just quickly some headlines here, because the Cowboys open training camp today. Zach Martin, the extremely talented offensive lineman, multi-time All-Pro, is not at camp because he is holding out. That was expected. However, Trayvon Diggs did get rewarded with a massive contract extension today. So that's 5 years to the tune of $97 million. Could have incentives that could make it even more. So the Cowboys getting a lot of things done today, but not, I'm sure, what they hoped was Zach Martin.
You know, when you think about the Cowboys, you think of Jerry, he's such a big character. They've actually been pretty sensible about the way they've built this team. Even 5 years, $97 million for Trayvon Diggs. I'm not seeing anyone is saying, oh, they overpaid him because of his star power. I think, and Zach Martin's funny. What is the most famous thing about Zach Martin, besides being a Hall of Fame guard? The fact that they took him and
not Johnny Manziel.
Not Johnny Manziel. They had the restraint, did not listen to Jerry Jones, and they took him. So it's funny. The Cowboys actually do a lot of smart things, and Jerry's so outspoken, we don't often think about them that way.
Speaking of Jerry being outspoken, so if you were wondering what the expectations were for the Cowboys this year, here you go.
If we can have the kind of camp we want to have, that we've got a team that can compete for the top spot. And there's a lot of work to be done because we're going to play a lot of young players. You look at some of the talent we've got, look at Dak. When I look at all those things, I think we've got a chance to be a contender.
Well, I mean, I'd hope so. You've been basically, you know, I don't say promising your fan base that you would win a Super Bowl, but you're talking about the urgency and how you feel this great urgency. I'd hope you'd be a contender. You're certainly not in a rebuild, and you can't be in the middle.
What are these young players, by the way? That's an excuse I mean, he's got.
Well, Diggs is only in year 4, but you just paid him.
Yeah, but they also signed Stephon Gilmore, who's anything but young, and even I don't think Micah Parsons is a young player. He's already dominant. Dak's not young. Even Tony Pollard, who they just re-signed, is not that young. Brandon Cook's certainly not young.
Marcus Lawrence, not young.
Not young. They have plenty of veterans. That excuse isn't going to fly, Jerry.
Well, I guess their left tackle's in his second year. If Tyler Smith, I guess he's going to get kicked into guard, right?
I think Tyron Smith's back, the Hall of Famer, right?
He is, but does Tyler Smith still play left tackle, or does he get kicked into guard? I don't know.
If Tyron Smith's on the field, then he's Left,
then he'll be
he
left
could be on
tackle.
one leg and be the better left tackle anyway. So, but generally though, they definitely have the veterans here. Don't give me this young players, Jerry. We're smarter than that.
Yeah, big question too about Mike McCarthy. We'll get to that. Let's welcome in now, turning our attention to Bronny James. We want to get the thoughts of Dr. Brian McDonough. He's a clinical professor of family medicine at Temple University School of Medicine. He's the host of the Dr. Brian McDonough Show podcast and a really amazing resource that we've leaned on throughout the years for many of our medical questions. Dr. McDonough, how are you? Thank you.
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. You know, unfortunately, we see this headline with LeBron James' son, Bronny James. He goes into a cardiac arrest yesterday at a basketball practice at USC where he's going to be a freshman. And Dr. McDonough, he's 18 years old, 6'3". What goes through your mind when you hear someone that young going into a cardiac arrest?
Well, I think you, first of all, don't know exactly the cause, but some of the things you would suspect were either something structural with the heart or something electrical that maybe just didn't go well or went awry. And you hope it's something that's transient, you know, a one-time thing that goes away. The good news is he went to the ICU and was discharged from the ICU relatively quickly. So that's good news because, believe me, you know, young person, any person, if there's a continued issue, they're not leaving the ICU or cardiac care unit. So that's good news as far as he's concerned. Still, though, it's concerning. You want to find out why.
So it's not really, we don't have to jump to the conclusion that his basketball days are over just because of this story. Have you had experience where people can continue athletic careers after something like a cardiac arrest?
Absolutely. You actually see it both ways. You have seen situations where people, if they have a cause that would be worsened by the strenuous activity, they don't play. But you see other people who are able to continue. It was a one time. And again, not knowing the cause, like you, I would definitely not be saying that it's the end of his career or anything. Right now, you just want him to get better and to find out what the reason is. And, you know, as tough as some of these things are, the fact that it happened in a controlled setting where it was witnessed, where they could get him help, that's also really important too. Because, you know, most people when they're playing sports are not always in that kind of a setting, and that can be really bad as well. So that was important for him.
Dr. Brian McDonough is joining us. He's a clinical professor of family medicine at Temple University School of Medicine, the host of the Dr. Brian McDonough Show podcast. It has helped us out throughout the years on a lot of things, COVID, most notably. You are so invaluable for us, Dr. McDonough, during the entire Damar Hamlin situation, which looks like he has obviously made a full recovery. Reading through some of and we're just so happy that we avoided a tragedy, and the James family avoided a tragedy here with Bronny, but reading some of the details that are out there, the fact that he was unconscious, reportedly unconscious for at some stretch of time, does that matter in the details? Like when you take the forensics of what happened today, does being unconscious mean anything?
What that means is, for whatever reason, there wasn't oxygen going to the brain. So at that point, you know, you would lose consciousness, but you don't take anything else from it. Obviously, if it was an extended period of time, and we have not heard that or have any reason to think that, then you worry about other issues. But once again, he wouldn't be out of the ICU had there been those issues. In the case of Hamlin, remember, they were very worried about that because that was an extended period of time, and they were able to get the heart going and restore that the blood flow to the brain. But this does not sound like anything like that extreme, at least from the reports we have.
Dr. McDonough, I'm not sure how involved with this story you were, if you remember it. But when Hank Gathers died in 1990, what impact did that have on the way sports and medicine collided? Was that, to me, that was such a sea change event. Did everyone look at sports differently and say, hey, we got to be very careful, and maybe did it improve that kind of condition for athletes?
I remember that dramatically. It was the early part of my broadcasting television career, and I remember doing the story. And also, Gathers was a Philadelphia athlete and legend, so it really hit that. And his coach, Paul Westhead, his coach, went on to the Lakers and other things, but he was a coach at Loyola Marymount where he was playing. And in his situation, they had identified a problem, and he actually was on a medication that would make it better. But that medication at the time, I believe it was a beta blocker, it made him a little more lethargic, not moving as quickly as he wanted. So he had pulled himself off it. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, he was more prone to have the problem. And again, the thing that came out of that, besides the horrible tragedy, was the fact that we started to get those AED devices, the devices to resuscitate people on the scene everywhere. And I think we got that now with Hamlin. We've seen it even more, like the need to have devices that can bring people back, whether it's high school, college, professional level, or in school settings. Just because you're young, these weird pathways in the heart, and that was an electrical issue with him, the weird pathways can cause problems and lead to that. So I do remember that being traumatic. And because I think it was on video, it was something that really shocked a lot of people when he went down.
Dr. McDonough, anything else you think our audience should know about this? I know it's really early, but obviously it's of huge interest to sports fans because not only Bronny's father, LeBron, but also Bronny is starting this career in college basketball where his, goals are going to the pros. So we're all very interested in the story. Anything else we should know at this time?
Well, I think we have to worry right now, especially with social media and so many people making comments, not to jump to any sort of conclusions of either the cause, his future, or whatever. Everybody's going to be an expert. Sure. But I can tell you, from treating people over many years, these things have to play out. We have to find out why. We have to see what the next steps are. And obviously, he's going to get the best care, and they're going to put his care first. But right now, I just think it's a situation you want to get him stable, and then from there, he's a young man. Hopefully, will bounce back and do very well going forward.
Dr. Brian McDonough is clinical professor of family medicine at Temple University School of Medicine and the host of the Dr. Brian McDonough Show podcast. Again, Dr. McDonough, thank you for being such a great resource for us. We appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Have a good summer. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. I know. So I was reading the LA Times about this. This is the second time in the past year that a player collapsed at USC in the Galen Center. Yeah, Vince Qucikie, I'm not familiar. It's like a center who plays at USC, collapsed at a practice last year, according to the LA Times, and was revived on site by the USC trainers using an automated external defibrillator. So the fact that people were trained, may have saved this young man's life and maybe Bronny.
Wow.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, too, when Damar Hamlin unfortunately went through what he went through. It was a wake-up call. Forget the pros, to get those devices around high school and college football, because sadly, I think most of the deaths we've read about are really high school age football and some college football, but the NFL obviously has the best possible care. So I think the real concern is really getting that out everywhere.
So also, according to the LA Times, this player, Qucikie, I'm sorry if I'm butchering his last name, but he was initially told he would never play basketball again, but the doctors reversed course on the prognosis because he made a full recovery and returned to basketball. He has a battery-powered pulse generator installed in his chest to constantly monitor his heart rate.
Wow.
Yeah. How did we not know about that story? This story is nuts. Anyway, so that's what's going on right now with Bronny. And, thankfully, it looks like tragedy was avoided. And, hopefully he can continue his basketball career. But that's secondary. I mean, now he's just got to get his health right. But
it reminds me of two stories. Damar Hamlin, he's in camp right now.
I know. So Damar Hamlin's going to have to be like a big part of the Bills' secondary this year.
I know. What an incredible recovery. Yeah. And we've talked about when Damar Hamlin went through what he went through. DJ Hayden, of former Oakland Raider, basically got hit so hard that a heart valve ripped, and he almost bled to death on the field, was in ICU for a long time, and 6 months later was a first-round pick. So you definitely can recover from major cardiac incidents. So there is hope. Not that it's aboard right now, but there is hope that Bronny will play again.
Yeah, and it's just interesting, not just because Bronny's such like a high-touted and high-profile prospect, so it bleeds over into sports, into what we do, but the fact that LeBron has been so open and forward about wanting to tie the end of his career to the beginning of Bronny's career. So beyond just being concerned for the individual and glad that he's out of the ICU and okay and stable, it's also, we're curious because we're watching the end of a career of an all-time great player who we weren't sure if he was going to end up in like a random city and still might, just still because he wants to play with Bronny.
Wouldn't rule it out.
No.
I say LeBron is about 70% sports dad, 30% athlete right now. He gets excited for NBA games, but when he is near his sons playing basketball, it's a whole new level. And I get that. I mean, my kids have no athletic ability, but if they did, I'd be really into it.
Yeah. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Now, we're also doing our great debate series this week. We're doing greatest individual players at their position in the history of the NFL. So if you were with us yesterday, we did wide receiver and cornerback. So for that, I took Jerry Rice. You took?
For Randy Moss.
And then for cornerback, I took Deion Sanders.
I took Rod Woodson.
Okay. Today we're doing running back and inside linebacker. So for running back, I took Barry Sanders.
I took Sweetness, Walter Payton.
And for inside linebacker, I took Ray Lewis.
Oh.
And Perloff took Dick Butkus.
Okay. That was a cue. I was waiting for you to ask me. By the way, I think today the 70th birthday of Walter Payton. Today, the 25th?
You know, I did see Jarrett had posted something about that.
Yeah, so
Died, he was 46.
I got to be honest, that was part of my thinking here. It just felt like the universe was saying Walter Payton.
Let's go to the phones, 855-212-4CBS. Jimmy's in Indianapolis has a thought on our greatest inside linebacker debate. What's up, Jimmy? Jimmy. Going once. Going to put you on hold. Okay. He was going to say Junior Seau.
Junior Seau was pretty darn good.
Derek Brooks and Brian Urlacher.
Derek Brooks was really good. Urlacher was different. Urlacher played this Chicago Bears 3-4 Lovie Smith. He wasn't a linebacker like Dick Butkus who would run after you and kill you. He was a much more sort of, I would say, finesse middle linebacker.
Is that possible? That's an oxymoron.
Well, Urlacher was closer. He was more pass-oriented. He was closer to he was a safety in college. I just think of the game has evolved so much where linebackers and even Ray Lewis had to adjust to the pass game. It wasn't just it's going to be a run every play, just go blow up somebody like Dick Butkus.
Well, that's why I love the stat about Ray Lewis. Only player in history, linebacker, of course, with 40 sacks and 30 interceptions. Like, if that doesn't show your versatility, I don't know what does. But, it's funny about Junior Seau. I mean, ferocious.
He was unbelievable.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, does he belong in this conversation of greatest of all time? He's right out there on the fringe, if not in the conversation.
I've heard some people say Derek Brooks is the best they've ever seen. Again, he was closer to Urlacher. He was a Lovie Smith style 3-4 linebacker. Have we mentioned Mike Singletary?
And Mike Singletary.
With those eyes.
Crazy. Yeah. I mean, I say that in the nicest way possible.
The nicest way, you don't want to face him.
No, I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah, Mike, if you're listening, we love you.
Yeah, no, I was not disparaging anyone there. Not at all. Okay.
By the way, you notice there are no Buffalo Bills on any of these defensive lists, except we haven't done pass rush yet. But who's the best Bills linebacker? Is that Kiko Alonso?
I don't even want to talk to you about that. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Okay, quickly, Brant is in Alabama. Hello, Brant. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are y'all doing today?
We're doing great.
So I got three inside linebackers that are so much better. We got Mike Singletary. We've got Zach Thomas, recent Hall of Famer, great Texas Tech Red Raider. I even watched him live, his last college game, interception against Texas A&M to seal the victory. And then you got one that's a little outside the box here, but go with me on this, Bobby Boucher, a.k.a. the Water Boy. Now, I know he never played in the NFL, but he set an NCAA record, 16 sacks in one game as a freshman. He also blocked and returned a field goal attempt for a touchdown, and he threw a player into the stands. How many linebackers do you know?
And he kept his team well hydrated, too. Let's not forget about that.
Yeah.
The guy was an ultimate team player. No, listen, Boucher's got to be factored into this conversation. I totally agree.
Yeah, we'll send it to Sandler. Brand, thanks so much for the call.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Yeah. I mean, I know what you're going to say here. Bobby Boucher was clearly an outside linebacker in the mold of Lawrence Taylor.
That's what I thought. We're doing inside linebackers
I mean,
today, guys.
He moved around. He basically played wherever he wanted to. He was so darn mad.
855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. I have to say probably greatest Bills linebacker, Cornelius Bennett. Awesome.
Yeah, I remember him.
Daryl Talley. Daryl was a little more inside outside. Cornelius Bennett is probably
London
London
wasn't Cornelius about 95? Was he an outside linebacker?
Maybe, yeah, but it was like I feel like I watched him play a lot of inside, too.
Can I
London
give you a
Fletcher.
Kiko Alonso?
No, that's what Perloff tried to say. I mean,
no, I was joking. I was like, if that's the best.
I mean,
wait, Tremaine Edmonds was pretty good. Yeah, I'm sure they're going to miss him this year.
Yeah.
Actually, you guys have to. Yeah, Takeo Spikes is a great player.
I know.
He's a Bengals, though, guy, I think.
I don't think Cornelius Bennett's an inside linebacker.
Well, okay. I mean, you want to split hairs here. I'll give you a London Fletcher.
Oh, yeah, you guys had a lot of good middle linebackers.
I know.
It's a shame you didn't get any Super Bowls out of that.
What about the Eagles?
The Eagles had Bill Bergey, who was in the Mark Wahlberg movie and retired in 1983. And that's all I got for you right now.
There you go. 855-212-4CBS. 855-212-4227. Okay, coming up, which big-time college football coach is looking at a suspension? Get to that story in just a moment. You're also welcome to weigh in on the greatest inside linebacker of all time and the greatest running back of all time. Our great debate series continues. Don't move. More Maggie and Perloff, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Minutes remaining. Minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Defensive Player of the Week is sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union, who proudly serves the Armed Forces, DoD veterans, and their families. Their members are the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. So I have a new habit at home. Every night on SportsCenter, I watch top 10 plays, and I take notes to figure out
Stu's going to pick.
who is fielding well in baseball and who's Stu going to pick, hoping he doesn't go soccer.
No, I know this one.
But who?
I think that Stu picked the goalie for the U.S. women's national team.
What?
They beat Vietnam 3-0.
Yeah, I know. I watched the game. I watched the game. She basically, she was lonely the entire
I didn't know what else to do.
Well, I got one.
Defender. Okay.
I got one. Is it Brewers rookie Sal Frelick?
It is not.
Is it Bryce
baseball.
Harper?
It is Bryce Harper. Your guy,
Yes,
Bryce
okay.
Harper. So
Whoa.
in his first career start at first base on Friday, he made a diving catch into the stands. It was Harper's first career start at first base after 1,258 games in the outfield.
There you go. Well, and also he had a big play the other day, too. So that's been a storyline that Bryce Harper's killing at first base. But there's this rookie on the Brewers named Sal Frelick. He's a huge prospect. Came in his first game, and he basically robbed 2 home runs, which to me is, I mean, robbing
and had
home
like
run.
the game-winning sac fly and had the game-tying single. He was awesome.
Did you see last night, by the way, some Brewers dude, our big rival, because I'm a Cincinnati Reds fan as well now,
as of 5 minutes ago.
stole an Ellie De La Cruz home run. Then the scoreboard taunted Ellie De La Cruz, who hit another home run. But you can't taunt Ellie De La Cruz, the Reds rookie phenom.
No, the scoreboard was like up to bat, Ellie De La Cruz 0 for 1, robbed of a home run or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
They put it up on the scoreboard.
And then he hit the ball 700 feet.
Yeah, it's like, don't the scoreboard people, they kind of know this is going to happen, right? Like, you're so asking for it.
Oh, totally.
Can't tempt the sports gods like that.
I'm back on the Reds bandwagon. They lost last night, but they're back. I want them to be buyers at the deadline.
Wait, but you only got on the bandwagon a week ago. How have you had time to get on and off and on again?
Well, they lost about 4 straight after the All-Star break, and I jumped off temporarily I'm like, I got to cool down my Reds love, see how they're doing. Now the Phillies are going south, so I'm back on the Cincy bandwagon.
I can't keep up with Perloff's bandwagoning.
Are you guys? I mean, if you look at the Reds and the Phillies, they basically have the same uniform. So I'm totally allowed to do this.
No. This breaks the rules. You can't have 2 National League teams. Anyway, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. We'll get to the big Jim Harbaugh story in just a moment, but we're talking about the great debate series, greatest running back of all time of their position. I said Barry Sanders. Perloff said Walter Payton. Greatest inside linebackers, though, of all time.
Yeah. Maggie went with Ray Lewis, and I went with Dick Butkus. Nick
is in Anchorage, Alaska. He's got a thought for us. Hi, Nick. How are you?
Good. How you doing today?
We're doing great.
Good. So I'm a Titans fan, so I got to go with Keith Bullock, or I was named after him, Nick Buoniconti.
Nick Buoniconti was so good. I mean, he was amazing. Keith, it's funny, we just had Chris Johnson on the show. If you're a big Titans fan, we had him on in the 4 o'clock hour. You can always, Eastern, you can always check out the Maggie and Perloff podcast. Nick, thanks so much. Keith Bullock and Chris Johnson would have been on those same teams together, definitely, right?
Well, Keith Bullock, he's one of those guys who was awesome, but he was caught up in the passing, 2000s. I feel like middle linebackers, except for Ray Lewis, sort of started to fade in their popularity because everything was about cornerbacks and wide receivers, and Keith Bulluck was that solid interior guy.
So I have a personal story about Keith Bulluck. He came on our SI show a couple times and was a guest frequently on our show. The most soft-spoken dude. I mean, it's so interesting to me when these athletes have that, like, it's a crazy dichotomy. Like, you're ferocious, and then you're just like a soft-spoken, just like very unassuming guy off the field.
Yeah, it's funny. It kind of happens a lot like that, right? The guys who, what's the expression? The guys who carry a big stick don't need a loud voice.
Yeah, speak soft for carry a big stick. That was like an FDR thing.
No, I thought it was like the Old Testament. No,
it's definitely not the Old Testament. It was a president who said that. Was it FDR, Stu? Am I wrong?
Roosevelt, according to Google.
Okay, so thank you, FDR.
Wait, which Roosevelt?
Stand by.
The suspense is killing us.
Yeah, I'm dying to know this.
Well, it can only be two people.
Theodore.
Ah, shoot, I was off.
It's always, I mean, FDR had nothing to fear but fear itself. But
right.
Teddy had a lot of lines.
I think FDR also said, "Judge me by my enemies," which I have carried with me to this day. John is in Indy.
Who are you talking about, Maggie?
I don't know. Maybe he owns the Knicks. John is in Indianapolis. Hi, John. How are you?
Hey, Maggie. How you doing? I want to say I'm a big fan of you guys since the show first came out. Okay. And 99% of the time, Maggie, I agree with you, but you're way off on this one. And McLovin, you're only right. You're right, but you're right for all the wrong reasons.
How can it be 99%? You're telling me 99 out of 100 times you agree with Maggie?
I make good points.
I do. But the top two running backs to ever play the game are Walter Payton, number one, no question, and then Emmitt Smith is number two right behind him. Barry Sanders, I mean, if you guys want to talk about just a pure runner of the ball with the ball in his hands as the best pure runner, we can talk about Barry Sanders. But there's so much more to the running back position than just running the ball. If you need a 3rd and 2, you can't get the ball to Barry Sanders. If you're on the goal line, you can't get the ball to Barry Sanders. If you're in a passing situation where you got to throw the ball, you can't have Barry Sanders in the game. If you need a guy back there for pass protection, you can't have Barry Sanders in the game. So he's limited. He's one-dimensional. I'll give you this. If I need to pick up a 3rd and 65, I will run Barry Sanders. If I need to pick up a 3rd and 2, I'm running Emmitt Smith.
Yeah, John, well done. Thank you. Great job. And, Emmitt deserves to be in the conversation. Now, we had Barry, Walter Payton, and Samter was stumping for Jim Brown, obviously.
Why does Emmitt deserve to be in the conversation?
Because he's the all-time leading rusher. That should matter. And
stats are so overrated. Those kind of stats. Efficiency stats are underrated, but total stats are so overrated.
Well, but that's why, Barry having the 5 yards per carry, Jim Brown 5.2, but Barry doing the 5 yards per carry, I thought really did matter. I mean, that was a funny line if you need, 3rd and 62?
3rd and 65.
Yeah. But that's what put it over the top for me. And also he wasn't so well-rounded, but that one thing that Barry did well, the elusiveness, was so incredible.
Well, I mean, it's funny. You mentioned, I'm going to go back to Emmitt for 1 second, because I'm Team Barry as well. Emmitt's all-time. Walter Payton's number 2. But then you get Frank Gore as number 3, and he's nowhere near this conversation. Barry's 4, Adrian Peterson 5, Curtis Martin is 6. Nobody's talking about Curtis Martin. So total yards to me is a little bit overrated, except for the number 2 on this list, Walter Payton.
When it serves your argument, then great. I do want to get to Jim Harbaugh for a moment, because this is interesting. It was a story that happened with recruiting violations that occurred during the pandemic. So I think a lot of people, the story got a little bit lost in the shuffle. But the bottom line is that Jim Harbaugh was making false statements to the NCAA. And it was about recruiting violations. And now he is expected to be suspended for the first 4 games of the season.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Now, listen, this is not exactly like Murderer's Row of schools.
That was a sarcastic uh-oh.
East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, and Rutgers. Something tells me that if Michigan is going to lose to any of those teams, they have much bigger problems on their hands than just a Jim Harbaugh suspension.
I mean, look at the schedule. So they do those 4 games with or without Harbaugh. Then they have at Nebraska and at Minnesota. Then Indiana, who I think is not up right now. Then at Michigan State, who's been mixed. Then Purdue. I mean, come on, Michigan. What are you doing here?
Well, last year their schedule was really light until they got to Ohio State. They won that game, and then they're in the college football playoff.
They do have one game, November 11th at Penn State. They have basically a 2-game season at Penn State and then a home versus Ohio State. So this Harbaugh suspension is totally meaningless in a sense.
So here's what, when I hear Jim Harbaugh is facing a 4-game suspension, I just think, just count down the days, guys, until he's back in the NFL. He has tried to get back in the NFL 2 times, if we're keeping track at home. 2 years ago, on National Signing Day, he was at the Minnesota Vikings trying to get the job. And last year, he did 2 interviews with the Denver Broncos. I mean, Michigan is way up right now going to the college football playoff, and it feels like the coach is looking for every exit ramp to get back into the NFL. And I think the fact that he would get suspended for being, lying to the NCAA investigators just even drives the point home even more. He doesn't want to deal with this crap. No one wants to deal with the NCAA. The recruiting is insane right now. It's 24/7 because of the transfer portal. And he seems like he's begging to get back to the NFL.
I mean, wow, he couldn't beat out Nathaniel Hackett and Kevin O'Connell for those jobs. He must be doing something wrong in these interviews. But I totally agree with you that he is eyeing the NFL. But this feels like a make-or-break year for Michigan. They have their quarterback coming back, J.J. McCarthy, and they have their Heisman candidate, Blake Corum, the running back, coming back. And they have nobody on their schedule. And Ohio State has a new quarterback. It feels like everything is aligning perfectly for Michigan. So if they can't do it this year, they're not going to do it. So Jim might as well leave, unless he has a quarterback in the pipeline that I'm not sure about. I'm sure he does. But I feel like this is going to be their best opportunity in the near future.
I mean, yeah, and I just think he's telling you without telling you. Like, listen, look at, and maybe he was using those NFL interviews to try to get bigger contracts from Michigan. Okay, but the winning will do that. It seems to me like, he wants to go back to the NFL. And also, don't forget, was he possibly in line for the Raiders job, Stu? Did Harbaugh interview for that job before they gave it to McDaniels?
Believe so. 2 years ago, yeah. He was one of the guys they were rumored to be after.
Well, one thing about Jim Harbaugh, I think he lives next door to his parents, right, in Ann Arbor. His dad's getting older. That family reasons could keep him in Ann Arbor.
Then why is he going on all these interviews?
Well, I mean, I just think as his parents get older, that might draw, he'll become less of a hot candidate. Jim Harbaugh's pushing 60. Maybe he's less of a hot candidate. If he doesn't win this year, if he can't get those jobs off those 2 years with Michigan, maybe the NFL doesn't want him.
Well, I'm wondering if maybe he's going and saying, I got to have full control.
Yeah, and that's a good point.
When you do that, it's hard because I don't know how analytically inclined Jim Harbaugh is, but that's the thing right now in the NFL. So to have your general manager be heavy analytics, like it seems like that's who they're hiring.
Well, also, you need to be in a situation where there is no sitting GM. I believe Denver had one. I don't think Minnesota. George Payton was still there. Minnesota probably didn't, but
they hired a new young.
Yeah, I don't know what the order of operations was there. But if you can't go into a team with a GM and say I want full control, because then the GM's gonna be like, nope.
Well, I mean, but I'm also speculating there. I don't know. But
but that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, because he's had a lot of success in the NFL. So this to me, it's not going to matter for the Wolverines on the field this year with him getting suspended, but it could end up mattering big time once the season is over.
I do disagree with that a little bit, though. I don't think he cares one way or the other about this 4-game suspension. I think you're right. I think if they don't win a title this year, he is out of there.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Harbaugh, he cares about everything. So he definitely cares about this 4-game suspension.
But I think he's already got his I think he's already, whether he'll admit it to himself or not, he's going to be interviewing next year.
Well, the other part of this, too, where I can understand, it's just like NCAA recruiting violations in the middle of the pandemic. Like, you shouldn't lie to anybody. I get that. But you're like, it's the Wild West right now in college football. You're coming at us with NCAA violations.
Oh, my God. That feels so dated. It's ridiculous. By the way, his former team, the Bears, might be open. Eberflus has done nothing. Indy just hired somebody. So I don't know. I feel like there's going to be some connections here. I can't believe. he couldn't get the Indy or Chicago job if he wanted a job. That's kind of weird.
855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Coming up, Arch Manning signs his first NIL deal, but it comes with a unique twist. Get to that in just a moment. After this CBS Sports Update, here's Dexter Henry.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
All right, thank you, guys. Bronny James, the eldest son of Los Angeles Lakers star LeBron James, suffered cardiac arrest Monday and is in stable condition. Bronny, who was entering his freshman year at USC, collapsed on the court Monday and was rushed to the hospital. The 18-year-old is no longer in the ICU. NBA news, Celtics star Jaylen Brown has secured the bag. According to reports, the forward has agreed to sign a 5-year, $304 million Supermax contract extension. That is the richest deal in NBA history. In the NFL, the Cowboys signed two-time Pro Bowl cornerback Trayvon Diggs to a 5-year, $97 million extension through 2028. That includes a $21.25 million signing bonus. Giants running back Saquon Barkley, he signed a 1-year adjusted franchise tag worth $10.1 million fully guaranteed and up to $11 million with incentives. The Saints, they made some roster moves, adding a couple of former Pro Bowlers to the roster. New Orleans brings back tight end and 5-time Pro Bowl selection Jimmy Graham on a 1-year deal. The Saints also signed New Orleans native Trey Turner to a 1-year deal. In college football, Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh is expected to be suspended for the first 4 games of the 2023 college football season. I'm Dexter Henry.
Is Jalen Hurts getting disrespected by the national media? We'll discuss with former Eagle Ike Reese later on the Zach Gelb Show. 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
'You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. Minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Maggie Gray, Andrew Perloff. Great debate series. You still got time to get your calls in. 855-212-4CBS. Today we did greatest running back of all time, NFL history, and greatest inside linebacker of all time. Again, I chose Barry Sanders as my running back and Ray Lewis as my inside linebacker. Perloff?
I went with Walter Payton and Dick Butkus. A lot of Chicago today.
There you go. I want to get to a little Cincinnati before I update the Arch Manning story. So this was, okay, this is what happens when your team gets good, right? Lots of people need to be paid. And when it comes to Cincinnati, we're talking about Joe Burrow, we're talking about Jamar Chase eventually, and we're talking about T. Higgins. So here was Mike Brown on how they're going to be able to pay all these guys.
We have some good players that need to be fed. You get a bag of corn and you have 10 hogs. Well, how are you going to put that out to them? The bag's going to be gone, empty, and some of them aren't going to get it. Well, that's too bad. And you prioritize the ones that you think are the ones that matter most. And I guess you guys have an idea who might be the number one guy there.
Yeah, we get it. It's Joe Burrow. But, I mean, do you have to compare your players to livestock? Do we have to get a comparison about hogs and bags of corn? I mean, we could have just got the analogy if you're like, hey, we have a lot of people to pay.
Yeah. No, it's dehumanizing. It's not good. I'm looking at Mike Brown. I was trying to get a little. He's 87 years old. Yeah. I don't know if that's an excuse. He went to my college, Dartmouth.
Good for you.
No, I can't believe this. This is not good.
Hooray. I don't. What do you want me to say for you there?
I can't.
A lot of famous people, I'm sure, went to Dartmouth.
Well, the former Bengals coach, this all makes sense because Don Shula's kid went to Dartmouth, and he got hired by Mike Brown. I did not realize there was a little Dartmouth connection going. I'm not proud of this one. But back
those Dartmouth people just really can't catch a break. It's really hard to make connections at those Ivy League schools.
Yeah, I mean, usually it's like Hank Paulson and like guys who bring down. If anyone brings down the global economy, it's usually a Dartmouth grad. But Mike Brown has been misspending money the other way. So I don't know where he get it. I don't think he really grew up on a farm. So I'm not sure why this is like. You might excuse a farmer who says something like this because this whole world is farming, but I don't think Mike Brown really grew up on a farm at all. Oh, okay, he's Paul Brown's son. Yeah, no, he's
I don't think so.
No, one thing about the Bengals though, I am definitely paying Joe Burrow. I'm definitely paying Jamar Chase, and I'm sorry I'm not paying T. Higgins.
Yeah, but
because you can't pay all these guys what they deserve.
Well. Joe Burrow's the no-brainer, yet Joe Burrow also is not done yet. Now, he's eligible for the extension now. Him and Herbert are both eligible. Tua, you can understand because he's got some health things. Maybe the Dolphins want to pump the brakes there. But we thought that Joe Burrow and Herbert were both going to have deals done like by now.
I think Joe Burrow is going to do a team-friendly deal. I know that sounds crazy.
What about Justin Herbert?
Justin Herbert, not as much. But, I don't know about Justin Herbert, but Joe Burrow is going to be focused on winning Super Bowls. So he's going to be like, give me the Mahomes long-term, huge money. And I just saw Joe Burrow is going around selling something today. He can make as much money as he wants to. He doesn't have to worry about money. He's like, yes, spend money on Orlando Brown at left tackle. Spend money on Jamar Chase. But even if he does take a discount, you can't have two $30 million a year receivers. Nobody can.
Well, T. Higgins would get a lot on the open market. We're talking about
like high 20s.
Unfortunately for running backs, it hasn't been great for them. Like, you have Dalvin Cook out there right now. I know Cook's got some things in his personal life, but you have Dalvin Cook who's sitting out there, and still no deal. So I think for T. Higgins, though, because of how wide receivers are getting paid, I don't know if he'll get paid like a number one, but he'll get a lot of money.
Right, which is why the Bengals cannot pay him. He's going to want $25 million to $30 million a year. How do you do that and Chase and Burrow? I mean, you just signed Orlando Brown. They are not a cheap team at all. They've been aggressive in free agency, and it's paying off. They're actually doing a pretty good job. I would like to see them all because I need somebody to. You told me we were arguing the other day. Will the Chiefs win 3 straight Super Bowls or something? Yeah. I argued back against you, saying that someone could beat Patrick Mahomes. The Bengals are the team to do it. I think they need to keep these guys together.
They're right there. 2 highest paid players right now in terms of their cap hit on the Cincinnati Bengals, DJ Reader and Trey Hendrickson. Both 2 highest paid, 2 guys on the defensive side.
I think Hendrickson was the game changer there because they never got a free agent before Hendrickson. They brought him in, and all of a sudden their defense is legit.
Let's get to our shot of the day.
He shoots!
And the shot of the day is brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos is brought to you by those who drink it. Today's shot of the day, our snapshot of the show, comes from Chris Johnson. CJ2K joined us earlier. We asked if he had advice for Josh Jacobs, who doesn't appear to be showing up to Raiders training camp anytime soon. And Chris Johnson said the holdout didn't work for him.
I ended up going through a situation where I held out the whole training camp and came back. And that probably was like one of the worst years of my career. If I can go back, I probably say I would have went in and did certain things. I don't know if I would have practiced full out or whatever, but I would have been there around the team, making sure I'm in shape and those type of things and trying to figure it out. But in his situation, him just missing the whole year and coming back and being in the same situation next year is definitely going to be interesting to see how that goes. If you look at Le'Veon Bell, he did that, and when he came back, he was never the same player again. So it's going to be tough. I can't even lie. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, that would be if Josh Jacobs does sit out the whole year, which we're not sure if he is. But, as opposed to Tony Pollard, who signed his tag immediately, I believe is at Cowboys camp. I didn't see anything that he wasn't there. Only Zach Martin didn't show up today, as far as we can tell, for the Cowboys. But Saquon Barkley did ultimately get an adjusted deal done. He's at Giants camp, Perloff, and it's Josh Jacobs, who the last report was him at the Las Vegas airport on his way out of town.
Yeah, but is Tony Pollard healthy? I know, he's not. I don't think he's starting a training camp a full go, is he?
Is he on the PUP list? I'm not sure.
I don't know. Yeah, okay, he is. Yeah, he's out there, but I think he is partly limited. I mean, he's coming back from a broken leg. Yeah. Which is funny, too, because I feel like he was like, yeah, I'll take that franchise tag because he did okay.
Right. It was that signified a really big increase for him in terms of salary. Sure.
But the funny thing is about Saquon, back to Saquon for 1 second, he was the number 2 overall pick. He's made a lot more money than a lot of these running backs. So he was in a position to make a ruckus here and hold out. Do you think that he had any responsibility to other running backs around the league?
I don't think so. That the solidarity stuff is great in theory, and then when it's actually you and your life, and it's $10 million or $11 million, I guess, with incentives. I mean, that's a lot to give up. And the one thing about Le'Veon Bell, though, for a moment, I would love to have known what it would have been like if Le'Veon Bell had gone to any other team but the Jets at that time. They were so bad, and Adam Gase was the coach at the time and just didn't want Le'Veon Bell as the general manager who signed him, Mike McCagnon. So I wonder if he could have still had a great career. That team was terrible.
But I think he hit his magic age. I think he hit 27 or 28, and it's just not happening for running backs after that age. And sorry, that's why Dalvin Cook's out there, because they're looking at Le'Veon Bell, looking at all the other running backs not named Derrick Henry. You just start to fall really fast.
How about this? So Arch Manning signed his first NIL deal with Panini. The Longhorns, the trading card company.
Yep.
But how about this? 100% of the proceeds all going to charity.
Great.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice story. You know, we talk so much about the tension and, you know, so many things in professional football. Arch Manning, let's be honest. I mean, I don't say he doesn't need the money, but, you know, is doing just fine. Not an average college kid when your uncles are, you know, Eli and Peyton and your father's Archie. And so all the money will go to St. David's Healthcare and the St. David's Foundation. They're going to auction off an autograph card of their on their website.
Can't argue with that. Sounds pretty good.
Right. I thought that was an interesting story there.
Dallas-based Panini going for the local guy. Makes sense.
You know?
Why am I thinking of a sandwich?
It happens with Panini.
Dallas-based Panini. It just sounds like
it's a brisket sandwich.
Sounds good.
It's got a little red onion on it and a little chipotle mayo. So there you go. And Arch Manning NIL deal. This was awesome. Thank you so much to Chris Johnson, CJ2K, who joined us today to talk about the state of the running backs. Tomorrow we'll be back. Our great debate series continues, and tomorrow is going to be a doozy.
It is?
Quarterback.
Okay.
But we're going to have a twist as we're doing the greatest players at their position of all time in the NFL. We have a twist tomorrow with quarterback.
Is the twist big enough for me to get Randall Cunningham into the conversation?
We don't have that kind of time. Okay, thank you, Mike Samter. Thank you to Stu Kovacs. Thank you to Dr. Brian McDonough, who joined us to talk about Bronny James. And also, as we said, Chris Johnson. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.